Chapter 181. Spar between Adam and Joshua 1. Joshua, or maybe it was Zariel now, stood at the heart of Asterius. The place was silent, filled with a strange, weightless stillness. The sky here didn't move. The air didn't shift. Time itself seemed to slow down around him as he stood quietly, arms at his sides, eyes staring into the emptiness beyond the horizon. Thoughts came flooding in. Images, flashes, the battle, the architect of ruin, and the power he lost control of. That moment, that final moment, when the entire multiverse teetered on the edge of total collapse. When he, Zariel, had to make the hardest decision of all. He couldn't stop himself. He couldn't stop it. And so, he turned to Varian, trusted him, asked him to do the unthinkable, kill him, end him, and seal everything, the power, the memories, himself, send him away somewhere small, somewhere peaceful, somewhere he couldn't break reality just by breathing. So they did. Zariel was gone, and in his place, Joshua was born. As the wind softly returned to Asterius, carrying the hum of ancient power through its crystal blue fields, someone approached him. Footsteps, familiar ones.
Adam.
He stood next to Joshua, hands in his pockets, looking at the shimmering sky. So, Adam said casually, you're now one of the most powerful beings in existence. How does it feel? Joshua turned slightly to look at him, then back to his hand, fingers trembling just a little as the sheer weight of the past washed over him. I don't really know, man, he said quietly. I just wanted a normal life. Not this. I didn't ask for it. He clenched his fist. I'm a threat to everything I want to protect. The architect's gonna come back. And when he does, he'll bring death with him.
Destruction.
And now I've got friends, you, Alice, Jordan, the others. If you all get caught in it. His eyes narrowed. I won't be able to stop it. Adam blinked once, then laughed. Laughed. Ift. H8. Yo, hold up, he said, holding his sides. You think I'm weak? Joshua looked at him like he just sprouted two heads. I'm serious. So am I, Adam said, grinning now. You're strong, yeah, but you're not that far ahead. You're just now getting the hang of your power. Me? I've been stacking up since forever. And trust me, the way I made Alice an absolute monarch in a few minutes, I could have her. And the rest. Transcend that without even blinking. He leaned in a little, voice lowering. Even now, you're only ahead of me slightly. And that's for now. You want to spar? I'm down. My adaptability's off the charts. Way better than Jordan's. But don't tell him that. He chuckled again. I even beat him without using any adaptation. Just pure skill. If I go all out, he'd be dead before he blinks. Joshua raised a brow. You sure you're not the threat?
Adam yinked.
Maybe, but I'm your threat. So let me help you. He held out his hand. Train with me. Learn to use your powers without breaking the world. Joshua stared at that hand for a second, then grabbed it. A white flash swallowed them. Adam's personal dimension. The shift was instant. The moment they arrived, Joshua felt it. The pressure. The density. This wasn't just some training ground. It was a fortress of energy. Stronger than anything he'd stepped into before. Whoa! He muttered.
Adam grinned.
Cool, right? It's 100 times sturdier than it used to be. Thanks to Nyros. Joshua blinked. Nyros? As if on cue, he looked around and his jaw dropped. Everywhere he looked, there were atoms. Dozens of them. Training. Sparring. Reading. Meditating. One was casually cooking noodles with energy beams. And then, kid. Floating midair with his hands behind his back like a tiny commander, inspecting other atoms and barking orders. Joshua squinted. Wait, what the? Adam facepalmed immediately. Nyrus. The floating kid turned, startled. Hey boss, you're back, he said, grinning wide like a child caught red-handed. Joshua turned slowly to Adam, eyebrow raised. Is that your kid? Adam's face went pale.
No.
No. That's not Look, he's a manifestation of a new energy source I tapped into. I didn't make him like that, he just formed. I'm technically his master. Nairos floated down, still grinning. You sure you're my master? You don't pay me. You don't get paid. Joshua just stood there, watching the chaos, then slowly began to laugh. A real one. First time in a while. This place is insane, he muttered.
Adam nodded proudly.
Yeah. Welcome to my world. Joshua and Adam stood in the center of the massive arena inside Adam's personal dimension. The ground below their feet pulsed with energy. Above, the sky twisted with controlled storms and glowing threads of creation magic. Far off in the distance, giant constructs, like mechanical titans, stood idle, watching. All right, Adam said, loosening his shoulders and rolling his neck. Let's see what your awakened self can do. Zariel or Joshua or whatever name you're rolling with today. Joshua smirked. You sure about this? Oh, I'm begging for it, Adam replied, grinning ear to ear. Just don't cry when I beat you. Joshua raised a hand. He didn't even summon a weapon. He just existed. And that was enough to shift the atmosphere completely. The energy in the arena turned thick, almost unbearable. Golden light began leaking from his body. On one side of his back, a glowing divine wing spread out like sunlight compressed into form. On the other side, something darker, something jagged, a devil's wing, but pure void instead of shadow. His eyes flickered, gold in the right, pitch black in the left. Even Adam blinked. Damn, I forgot how strong I really was, Joshua muttered. Feels like I've been breathing through a straw all my life. Suddenly, boom, he vanished and reappeared inches in front of Adam with a straight punch to the chest. Adam raised a single palm. Clang! The shockwave alone tore through the clouds in the sky above. Several of the other atoms in the distance tumbled backward or had to brace themselves. Not bad, Adam said, smiling. But you're gonna have to do way more than that. His body glowed red, then white, then nothing. He twisted around and kicked Joshua in the side, sending him crashing into one of the energy pillars. The whole structure trembled. Joshua flew out with a smirk. You've gotten stronger. I never stopped training, Adam said, now dashing forward with insane speed. Let's go. Chapter 182. Spar between Adam and Joshua 2. Wham! The sound rang through the air as their fists clashed again. Joshua's punch pushing forward with sheer divine and void power. Adam meeting it head-on with glowing, crimson-coated knuckles. The impact made the ground quake beneath them, energy rippling in every direction like a shockwave underwater. The air screamed as pressure blasted out in waves. Joshua grinned. Adam grinned right back. Come on, Adam taunted, darting back with a light hop. That tickled. Joshua exhaled, raising his fists. I was holding back. Oh, Adam's smirk widened. Don't. Joshua vanished again. No sound. No prep. Just gone. Adam's eyes widened just a little, barely in time to tilt his head and dodge a golden white elbow that cracked the space where his head had just been. Joshua didn't stop. He was on him. Fist after fist, punch after punch. Each one faster, harder, heavier. Adam blocked the first, dodged the second, caught the third. But the fourth, boom, sent him flying. He smashed into the ground like a missile, carving a trench through the arena floor before flipping midair and landing on his feet, skidding backward with sparks flying. Joshua appeared above him, leg raised. Adam's eyes narrowed. Oh hell no! Crack. Heel met palm. But it wasn't just a hit. The energy riding along Joshua's leg erupted like a controlled nuke. It forced Adam's feet into the ground, creating a crater beneath him. He winced, sliding a few steps back as the dust settled.
Alright, Adam mutteret.
You're not joking around anymore. Joshua landed a few feet away, golden wing twitching with raw power, void wing humming silently like a predator in the dark. You said not to hold back, he said, voice calm but dangerous. I'm not.
Adam chuckled.
Then let me show you what adaptation really looks like. His body pulsed. Once, twice, then, boom! All at once, Adam's body glowed, not with one color, but with every color. Energy wrapped around him like strands of living code, changing his aura, his rhythm, even his form. He cracked his knuckles, his eyes gleaming like polished steel. Joshua didn't even flinch. "Show me." And just like that, they were on each other again. Bam! 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 Their punches collided like meteors. Joshua swung wide, a right hook enhanced with divine judgment. Adam ducked, rolled to the side, and jabbed upward. Joshua leaned back, letting it miss by inches, then spun and kicked. Adam caught the leg only to eat a left hook in the ribs. He grunted, jumping back, then stepped forward instantly, slamming his elbow into Joshua's shoulder. Joshua snarled, backflipped, and landed hard, crouched low. Energy burned off both of them now, smoke rising from their skin, the arena reacting violently to their presence. The constructs in the distance started backing away. Even Nairos floated off to the side with wide eyes. "Yo, they're gonna break the whole realm," he muttered, hiding behind an energy wall. Joshua stood tall again, chest rising and falling. Then he raised both hands. The space behind him cracked, and from it, tendrils of light and shadow emerged. They wrapped around his arms, spiraling up like serpents made of divine lightning and void storm. Adam tilted his head. "What the hell is that?" Joshua's voice was low. "New trick. Zap. Crack. Zip." He moved, and this time, it was fast. Too fast. Adam barely got his hands up before the first strike landed. A twin fist strike that hit like a black hole wrapped in a sunburst. The force sent him backward again, but Joshua didn't let up. He moved with inhuman precision, strikes coming from every direction at once. Above, behind, side, front. Adam twisted, blocked, flipped midair, redirected the momentum, but even he started gritting his teeth. Joshua was getting faster, stronger. Each punch felt like it had 10 versions behind it. Each hit made the air fold in on itself, like the multiverse was flinching. Adam blinked between movements, his body shifting every few seconds. Scales, wings, steel, wind, light. Every adaptation showing up for half a heartbeat before melting into the next. He managed to parry a brutal knee, spun midair, and landed a clean palm strike against Joshua's chest. Boom! Joshua skidded back, coughing once, but grinning. "You're keeping up." Adam cracked his neck, his smile feral. "Of course I am. I am me." Joshua vanished again. Adam leaned back, dodged, but didn't expect the delay. Joshua faked the attack, then came in low with an uppercut that distorted the entire space. Krakum! Adam was launched straight up, punching through 3 layers of storm clouds in the sky above. Joshua followed. What happened next was barely visible. Just flashes of gold, white, and void-black energy colliding with flickers of crimson, silver, and shifting elements. They tore through the sky like gods playing tag. Each hit resounded like thunderclaps. Each movement broke logic. Adam laughed mid-battle, his shirt torn, hair half-spiked from static. "You're almost fun now." Joshua slammed a foot into his chest, sending him crashing downward. Adam flipped midair and crashed into the arena again, shaking the ground. Joshua followed, landing softly. Adam coughed once, wiping blood off his lip. "All right, fine. No more tricks." Joshua raised a brow. "You've been using tricks?" Adam stood up, grinning wide. That was the warm-up. Suddenly, the entire arena turned white. Energy surged from Adam like a tidal wave. Every version of him training around the dimension froze, then dissolved, absorbed into him. Joshua's eyes widened. "You fused with your own copies?" Adam's voice was deeper now, crackling with power. "Every version of me, over the last 200 years. Every skill, every technique, every mistake. Gone. Now it's just me. The real me." His aura exploded. Joshua braced himself instinctively as the force hit him. Adam cracked his knuckles. "All right, round 2." Then he moved. And Joshua wasn't ready. Adam appeared behind him in a blur, grabbed his shoulder and spun him like a toy, then slammed him into the ground with a massive downward strike. Boom! The earth cracked open beneath them. Joshua grunted, flipped backward, and rebalanced, swinging wildly to keep Adam off. But Adam danced between the blows now, moving like water, flowing around the hits, slipping through the gaps, tagging Joshua with precision strikes. Chest, side, neck, back. Joshua staggered, blood in his mouth. Damn! Adam didn't let up. He stepped forward, one hand glowing with spiral energy. Joshua tried to move, but too late. KRAK. The strike hit his core and flung him across the entire dimension. Through hills, rocks, towers. He finally crashed in a crater at the far end of the arena. Gasping. Adam appeared above him, hand out, helping him up. Joshua looked at it, then took it, groaning as he stood. You weren't kidding.
Adam Simirket.
Told you. You've got raw power, Josh. But skill? Experience? I've been stacking those like crazy. Joshua smiled through a wince. Then let's keep going.
Adam Greenlet.
Hell yeah. Chapter 183. Spar between Adam and Joshua 3. The crater hissed with steam. Chunks of glowing stone floated midair before snapping back into place. Like time and space were trying to fix themselves. The edges of the arena pulsed with golden circuitry, ancient runes flaring to life as the world began rebuilding itself around the wreckage. Joshua stood there, shirt torn to ribbons, chest heaving, skin marked with faint scorch lines. His wings had retracted, but the divine and void energy still pulsed beneath his skin. Bright on one side, dark on the other. Across from him, Adam rolled his neck, shirtless too now, steam rising from his shoulders. Lines of golden runes lit up along his arms and torso, almost tribal, shifting slightly with each breath. His grin was wide, teeth glinting like he'd just won a bet. Joshua smirked back, blood still trailing from the edge of his mouth. So, Adam said, cracking his knuckles, you want to go another round? Joshua didn't even hesitate. Hell yeah. The ground beneath them cracked again, not from power, but anticipation. Energy started dancing around them like the air was excited too. From a safe distance, Nairos peeked over a floating wall of reinforced energy. His tiny body braced like a leaf in a storm. Okay guys? Maybe don't go another. Boom. The shockwave from just their auras clashing again blasted Nairos back through 3 floating platforms. I'm too young for this. Joshua didn't even notice. He was in it now. And for the first time in what felt like forever, he felt good. No pressure to hold back. No fear of breaking reality. No multiversal chains wrapped around his arms. Just him. Power flowing naturally, evenly. No mental backlash. No explosions of unstable energy. It was control. Through chaos. He darted forward, not too fast this time, just fast enough to test things. His fist glowed faintly, but it wasn't tearing open rifts like before. The divine and void energies wrapped around his arm like disciplined soldiers instead of wild storms. Adam met him with the same energy, grinning, stepping in, parrying the strike smoothly, and throwing one right back. Joshua ducked, came up with an elbow. Adam leaned aside, clipped him with a counterpunch to the ribs. Bam! Joshua grunted but didn't get launched. His body was tougher now, denser, more balanced. He slid back on his feet, skidding across the arena as golden sparks traced his boots. Adam raised a brow. You're learning mid-fight. Joshua rolled his shoulder. Not just learning, sinking. He waved his hand, and a ring of compressed divine light formed around his wrist. He launched it at Adam like a disc, forcing Adam to flip back. As he landed, Joshua was already there. Fist glowing black this time, swirling with void. Adam caught it barehanded, then winced as a layer of his skin peeled from the sheer force. Okay, that one stung, he muttered. They reset again, just standing across from each other, breathing hard, steam rising. the crater beneath their feet glowing brighter as the arena continued to heal around them. "You're getting dangerous," Adam said, stretching a little. "Like actual problem tier. Pretty soon, even I won't be able to keep up if you keep leveling like this." Joshua wiped sweat from his brow, laughing a little. "Guess you'll have to train harder."
Adam grinledi.
"Guess so." Another silence. Their feet shifted in sync. Muscles coiled. The whole dimension held its breath. Then, crack, they launched at each other again. Fists met midair, thunder cracking around them. Their punches didn't just collide. They danced. Each hit was like watching two forces of nature play a game only they could understand. Lightning arced off their bodies. Void shimmered like shattered glass. The golden runes on Adam's body pulsed with every move, boosting him with old magic that even Joshua couldn't read. But Joshua was adapting too. Every swing felt smoother, every dodge tighter. He wasn't just throwing power around anymore. He was using it, shaping it, feeling it flow like it belonged. Because maybe it did. Maybe this insane training ground, with its chaotic energy and ridiculous sparring partner, was exactly what he needed. He grinned mid-punch.
Adam noticed.
"What are you smiling about?" he asked, sidestepping a kick and answering with a spinning back fist that Joshua barely blocked. "I'm not scared anymore," Joshua said, stepping in with a shoulder slam. Adam took it like a wall, then laughed. "Took you long enough." They broke apart again, breathing harder now. The arena was in ruins again, but neither of them cared. Joshua shook his head, still catching his breath. This is helping more than you know." Adam wiped blood from his chin. "Yeah? You're welcome. I'm serious. For the first time, I'm not thinking about holding back. I'm just doing. And it's working. My power's listening." Adam gave a short nod. "That's the point of a good spar.
No lectures. No hesitation.
Just instincts and growth." Joshua looked around, the broken sky, the glowing cracks, the floating ruins of constructs that had moved away mid-fight. "You built all this just for training?"
Adam chuckled.
"Nah, I built it for fun. Training just happens along the way." Joshua laughed again, his voice full and alive. This was what he needed. Not rules, not fear, not another seal or prison. He needed this, a space to go all out, a rival who could push him, and the chance to relearn who he really was. Not just Zariel, not just Joshua. Both. "You ready for round 3? Adam asked, sparks crawling across his shoulders. Joshua raised his fists again, cracking his neck. "Let's go." And just like that, they vanished again. The sky split open. The world trembled. And two titans clashed once more, no longer to destroy, but to become what they were meant to be. Nyros floated above the shattered landscape, arms crossed, mouth twisted in a mix of awe and horror. He looked around, craters within craters, floating debris stuck midair. The sky cracked like broken glass, and the arena's once smooth floor now a mess of glowing scars and barely holding together platforms. He let out a slow sigh.
Man,
If this dimension had a mind, it'd be crying right now. He glanced at the two shirtless maniacs still throwing hands below. Begging, actually. Screaming, "Please, for the love of cosmic balance, stop." Another shockwave hit, and a chunk of floating stone barely missed him. Nyros dodged it with a grunt. Unbelievable. These two are treating reality like a punching bag. He hovered higher, just out of range, muttering under his breath. Next time they want to spar, I'm building them a playpen in the void. Chapter 184. Spar between Adam and Joshua 4. Time didn't matter anymore. Minutes bled into hours, hours into days, days into years. And still, they fought. Joshua and Adam, blow for blow, step for step. No audience, no rules. Just war painted in lightning, fire, void, and raw will. At some point, weapons got involved. Adam manifested twin blades, sleek, curved, humming with elemental energy. One fire, one wind. He spun them like extensions of his body, carving streaks of light through the sky. Joshua responded with a halberd made of divine light and void metal. Heavy, brutal, elegant. Every swing split the air like thunder. Clang. Their weapons collided mid-air, sparks flying like fireworks. Adam flipped back, blades crossing in front of him as Joshua landed with a quake, dragging the halberd behind him like a war god on a mission. "You're getting stronger again," Adam said, twirling his blades. "You're still faster," Joshua shot back, smirking.
Adam lunget.
Joshua met him head-on. The clash echoed across the realm. Mountains in the distance cracked from the aftershock. The sky, long since used to being broken, just flickered like a worn-out light. Years passed like breath. They fought with swords, spears, gauntlets, staffs, even bare hands again. Whatever worked, whatever pushed the other higher. Joshua's control evolved. His divine energy was no longer wild. It flowed like liquid gold, sharp when needed, soft when it had to be. His void side, focused now. A silent, perfect storm behind every strike.
Adam?
He kept adapting, not just reacting but predicting, learning, copying, surpassing. Joshua would land a new move. Adam would counter it a minute later, now twice as fast. "You're cheating," Joshua muttered one day, slamming Adam into the ground with a spinning knee. Adam spat dust, grinning through a cracked lip.
I'm evolving.
He kicked up and caught Joshua in the jaw. Boom! They flew apart again, crashing into opposite cliffsides. Another day they fought underwater. Another mid-air for a week straight.
No sleep. No breaks.
Only brief pauses to breathe and laugh. Sometimes they'd collapse mid-fight, panting, grinning, too tired to throw another punch. Then 10 seconds later, back at it. Even the dimension stopped fixing itself. The golden circuits just flickered like they'd given up. Like, "We tried." Nyros, long since retired from trying to intervene, just sat cross-legged on a floating boulder with a drink in hand and a massive pair of headphones on. He only looked up when the shockwaves got too close. 5 years, he muttered. They've been doing this for 5 freakin' years. Another explosion rocked the realm. Insane. Back on the battlefield, Joshua dropped his weapon, hands smoking. He took a deep breath, then raised his fists again. His aura, blazing now, perfectly balanced.
No surges. No chaos.
It pulsed with harmony, divine and void dancing together like they were always meant to. Adam stood nearby, dusting off his shoulder. His runes had multiplied, ancient, living tattoos that shifted every time he blinked. His power wasn't just strong now. It was complete. "You look different," Adam said, walking up. Joshua rolled his shoulder. "Feel different. No more explosions when you sneeze?" Joshua laughed. "Only when I want them."
Adam simirket.
"Guess that means you're ready." Joshua raised a brow. "For what?" Adam's grin widened. "Level 2. Boom. And just like that, they vanished again. No signal. No warning. Just movement. Just impact. Just them. Across shattered skies and broken ground, the spar continued. No end in sight. Just growth. Rivalry. And the kind of battle that legends dream about. Silence. The dust finally settled. No more shockwaves. No more glowing craters. Just steam rising from the ground and 2 figures standing in the heart of a world they nearly broke. Again. Joshua exhaled, chest rising and falling slowly, golden and void light flickering faintly around him. His fists were down now, knuckles bruised and raw, sweat dripping from his chin. Adam was breathing hard too, runes along his arms dimming, the glow fading from his body like a fire winding down after burning hot for years. They stood there, face to face, not even needing words. Then, snap, like someone flipped a cosmic switch, flash, and they were back. The sky above was calm. The platform beneath their feet was untouched. No broken land.
No ripped clouds.
No floating ruins or scorched air. They were standing right where they'd started, in the middle of the Asterius training grounds, not a single second out of place. Birds chirped faintly somewhere in the distance. Joshua blinked, looked around, looked at his hands, looked at Adam. "What the hell?" he muttered, voice hoarse. Adam just stretched, cracking his neck like he'd woken up from a nap. "Yeah, time doesn't move in there. Whole session. Took like half a breath out here." Joshua just stared at him, jaw slack. "You're serious?" Adam grinned, patting him on the shoulder. "That's how it works. You get used to it." Joshua looked down at his body. His clothes still torn, skin still marked from the fight, and then back at the untouched world around him. "That's insane."
Adam şuruk.
"Welcome to the big leagues, man." Joshua exhaled again, still trying to process. "We were in there for years."
Adam simirket.
"Yup. You feel it now, don't you?" Joshua paused, then nodded slowly. He did feel it. The way his power sat cleaner in his veins now. The way his instincts moved faster than his thoughts. Like all those fights, all that chaos, it meant something. Adam gave him a nudge.
Smo.
"Let's get you patched up. I think you earned some real food." Joshua laughed, still dazed but smiling. "Hell yeah. You're paying though."
Adam grinnet.
"I always do." As they walked off the platform, the sky above them faded into gold, the gateway to the next trial waiting in silence. But for now, they were just two warriors, grinning, bruised, hungry, and very much alive. Silence. The dust finally settled. No more shockwaves, no more glowing craters. Just steam rising from the ground and two figures standing in the heart of a world they nearly broke. Again. Joshua exhaled, chest rising and falling slowly, golden and void light flickering faintly around him. His fists were down now, knuckles bruised and raw, sweat dripping from his chin. Adam was breathing hard too, runes along his arms dimming, the glow fading from his body like a fire winding down after burning hot for years. They stood there, face to face, not even needing words. Then, snap, like someone flipped a cosmic switch, flash, and they were back. The sky above was calm. The platform beneath their feet was untouched. No broken land.
No ripped clouds.
No floating ruins or scorched air. They were standing right where they'd started, in the middle of the Asterius training grounds. Not a single second out of place. Birds chirped faintly somewhere in the distance. Joshua blinked, looked around, looked at his hands, looked at Adam. "What the hell?" he muttered, voice hoarse. Adam just stretched, cracking his neck like he'd woken up from a nap. "Yeah, time doesn't move in there. Whole session. Took like half a breath out here." Joshua just stared at him, jaw slack. "You're serious?" Adam grinned, patting him on the shoulder. "That's how it works. You get used to it." Joshua looked down at his body. His clothes still torn, skin still marked from the fight, and then back at the untouched world around him. "That's insane."
Adam şuruk.
"Welcome to the big leagues, man." Joshua exhaled again, still trying to process. "We were in there for years."
Adam simirket.
"Yup. You feel it now, don't you?" Joshua paused, then nodded slowly. He did feel it. The way his power sat cleaner in his veins now. The way his instincts moved faster than his thoughts. Like all those fights, all that chaos, it meant something. Adam gave him a nudge.
Smo.
"Let's get you patched up. I think you earned some real food." With that, they walked away.
Chapter 185. Vael.
Carrion sol.
The city was alive. Golden light spilled between towering spires, casting warm halos on the marble streets below. The air shimmered faintly with manna, just enough to tingle in the skin. Sky rails zipped above their heads with humming carriages, gliding like silent birds over the skyline. Floating crystals pulsed from the tops of ornate lampposts, illuminating the roads in soft blues and purples. Adam and Joshua stood at the edge of it all, just having stepped out of the Asterius gate. A tear in reality snapping shut behind them with a gentle pop. Joshua blinked at the sudden change. From a war dimension where time meant nothing, to this, The smell of roasted meats and spiced vegetables filled the air. The sound of a bard plucking a glowing string instrument echoed from a nearby plaza. The streets were bustling, but calm, crowds moving in soft flows like synchronized tides. And the people, every kind. Tall, antlered Alari in long, flowy robes walked beside Dwerin traders with thick gear belts and iron boots. Feathered avian glided down from sky balconies. A kid with pointed ears and silver eyes ran past, laughing as a trail of magic butterflies followed behind him. Joshua just stood there, taking it in. "Been a long time," he muttered. Adam looked over, raising a brow. "Since you were here?" Joshua nodded slowly, his gaze distant. "Yeah, back when I was Zariel." Adam didn't say anything. He just let him have the moment. The wind brushed past them, warm and scented with flowers. The city of Carrion Sol had always been a hub of life, a place where all races mixed, where peace lived in the cracks between ancient wars and shifting powers. Joshua's eyes moved across the familiar towers. He remembered flying above them, wings of white fire spread wide, a sword that sang in his hand. He remembered walking these same streets once in golden armor, nodding to those who bowed. Back when he was still the Archon of Light. Back when he still believed the world was simple. "It's weird being back," he said softly. Adam just smirked, walking ahead. "Well, you're not exactly glowing anymore, so I think we're good." Joshua chuckled under his breath and followed. They walked through the city, weaving between crowds, past floating gardens, under enchanted bridges. A fire elemental was juggling molten spheres on a corner, drawing a small audience. A merchant hawked enchanted knives that danced on command. A talking bird in a cage yelled insults at passersby. Joshua's eyes kept flicking to the small things, signs he'd seen before, buildings that hadn't changed, even after all this time. "That tea shop," he said, pointing to a corner stall with draped curtains and lavender steam pouring out. "Used to sit there with cereal. Talked about dumb prophecy stuff." Adam raised an eyebrow. "Sounds romantic. She was 3,000 years older than me."
Adam grinledi.
"So?" Joshua just laughed and shook his head. Eventually, they found it. A little restaurant tucked between a bookstore and a potion apothecary. No fancy sign, just a carved wooden slab above the door that read, "Vale's Table." The warm light inside glowed like a hearth. Joshua stopped in front of it. "Still here?" Adam glanced through the window. "You been here before?" "Only place I ever ate when I was stationed in Carrion. Best food in the whole realm."
Adam şuruk.
"Say less." They pushed the door open. Ding. A soft bell rang as they stepped in. The inside was cozy, walls of dark wood, glowing mana-lanterns hanging from the ceiling, tables filled with people of every shape and kind. Soft music playing from a crystal orb in the corner. The smell hit them immediately, rich, smoky, buttery. Spices Joshua couldn't name but knew deep in his bones. An old man behind the counter looked up, his eyes narrowing, then widening. "Zariel?" Joshua froze, then smiled.
Hej, Vael.
The man walked around the counter, slower than before, hair whiter, but the same sharp presence. "I thought I recognized that aura," Vale said, clapping him on the back. "You're supposed to be dead." Joshua grinned. "Been working on that." Vale looked at Adam, studying him for a second. "This one's got the eyes of a killer."
Adam noddet politeli.
"Good read."
Vael smirked.
"Good. See, you're getting the special." They took a seat at a booth near the window. Outside, the city lights began to shimmer into evening colors, soft golds and deep purples painting the skyline. Joshua leaned back, letting the comfort of it all sink in. "This place hasn't changed a bit." "Food better not have either," Adam said, already pulling out the menu. Even though they didn't need to order. A minute later, Vale dropped off 2 plates the size of shields. One stacked with seared dragon beef wrapped in flame leaf. The other a tower of steaming soul rice with glowing sauce and spiced vegetables. "Eat," he said. "You look like you've been through a hell cycle." Joshua and Adam dug in without hesitation. Silence for a while. Just food. Just warmth. Vale leaned on the edge of their booth, arms crossed, a cloth draped over one shoulder. His eyes, still sharp beneath heavy lids, studied Joshua like a man trying to solve a half-finished riddle. "So," he said finally, "how've you been, Zariel?" Joshua paused mid-bite, slowly finishing his mouthful before leaning back, the fork still in his hand. "That name feels like it belonged to somebody else," he muttered. Vale gave a knowing smile. "Doesn't answer the question." Joshua glanced out the window. The city outside was moving into night mode now. Floating orbs lighting the streets, shop windows glowing with charm light, musicians tuning up in distant courtyards. The world kept turning. He exhaled through his nose, gave a lopsided smile. "It's been a long journey." Vale raised a brow, not pushing, just waited. Adam, already halfway through his soul rice, slowed his chewing, watching Joshua out of the corner of his eye. Vale finally chuckled. "Kid, I serve time-traveling witches and void-touched lords with existential trauma. Don't tell me it's a long journey. I've got all the time." Joshua looked at him, and for a moment, just a flicker, his expression softened in a way that felt ancient. Like the mask of sarcasm and survival peeled back just enough to show the man underneath. The weight, the years, the fights, the regrets. But he didn't sink into it. Didn't spiral. He just nodded. "All right," Joshua said. "You really want the rundown?"
Vael grinned.
"If you start with, 'So there was this angel war,' I'm kicking you out." Joshua laughed. "Then I'll skip the part where I led one." Chapter 186. Alexandria meets the kids. Asterius. The gateway peeled open like a page turning through space, shimmering with a low hum that faded as they stepped through. In one moment they were in the forest. In the next, stone arches, silver walls, and the vast, empty interior of Asterius. Still, quiet, echoes stretching like soft ghosts across the floor. Eli stumbled slightly as the world settled back into real motion, blinking at the vast chamber around him. His brother was still in Aurora's arms, unconscious, breathing softly. They were alone, or so it seemed. Eli looked up at her. "Where is this?" Aurora didn't answer right away. She just kept walking forward, her bare feet tapping gently on the stone. Her dress still drifted like it wasn't bound by air. She moved like someone who had done this 100 times before, no hesitation. Eli jogged a little to keep up, looking around. The place felt like a cathedral. If the cathedral had been built by gods who didn't care about religion. Everything shimmered faintly, like manna was just soaked into the walls. He was about to ask another question, when a voice echoed behind them. "Okay. Who's the kids?"
Eli jumped.
Aurora didn't. She didn't even turn. Eli twisted around and saw the other woman standing a few paces back, arms folded loosely, a slight grin playing on her lips. She looked casual, almost too casual. Her eyes flicked between him and his brother, then up to Aurora again. "Found some orphans in a tree or something?" she teased, taking a slow step forward. "Or did you finally decide to settle down and adopt? I mean, it was either that or tame a celestial WIRM, and I figured the WIRM had better odds." Aurora said nothing. She didn't slow, didn't glance, just kept walking. Eli looked between them, confused. Who?" "Don't mind her," Aurora said softly. "Wow." The woman, Alexandria, clearly not used to being ignored, smirked. "You finally bring guests through the gates and I don't even get an introduction? Rude." She jogged up beside them, matching pace, looked down at Eli, then leaned in a little closer to Aurora. "Seriously though, who are they?" Still nothing. "Come on, don't be like that," Alexandria pouted. "You never bring people through here. Last time you showed up with someone back in our home universe. They were bleeding out and half shadow and you said, and I quote, 'temporary.'" Aurora shifted the boy in her arms slightly. Her expression didn't change. "Still none of your business." "Oh, she speaks." Alexandria threw her hands up like a miracle had happened. So formal. So icy. So Aurora. Eli blinked up at her again. Do you live here too? Alexandria's eyes flicked to him, and for a moment her playful grin softened. Something like that, kid. Aurora moved past another archway, her fingers brushing lightly against the runes engraved in the wall. They pulsed faintly, recognizing her, maybe. Where are we going? Eli asked quietly. Resting hall, Aurora said. It's empty, Alexandria added, hopping up onto a raised edge beside them and walking it like a balance beam. No one's here. Whole wings sealed. Which makes me wonder, again, why you of all people are suddenly bringing children to the most locked-down part of the realm. Aurora didn't reply. Like, really? Alexandria kept going, arms out like wings. You don't even like people. You barely like me, and I'm amazing. But now you're carrying this dramatic sleeping beauty over here and walking like it's your job. Eli tugged at Aurora's sleeve. Is she always like this? Yes. Still here, Alexandria said, grinning. Still talking. They reached a wide-open doorway, arches of silver stone carved into strange curves that didn't follow normal geometry. The room beyond was glowing with soft blue light. Beds lined one wall, magical fabric folded neatly at their sides. Crystals embedded in the ceiling shimmered with slow, pulsing breath. Aurora walked straight to the nearest bed and gently laid Eli's brother down. The older boy stirred slightly, mumbling something incoherent before going still again. Eli stayed close, fingers tightening in his shirt. He's okay, right? Aurora nodded. Sleeping. Healing. He didn't move for a while, just watched his brother breathe. Behind them, Alexandria leaned against the wall, arms crossed again, this time quieter. Where were they? She asked, her voice less teasing now. Out, Aurora said. Out where? There's a difference between a bad street and a death forest. I said. Aurora turned slightly, her expression blank. Not your business. Alexandria rolled her eyes, sighed dramatically, and pushed off the wall. Fine, fine. Goddess of silence wins again. Eli glanced at her. She's really not going to tell you anything? Nope, Alexandria said cheerfully, plopping onto a low bench. She's like that. Keeps things to herself. Secrets, names, the fact she once crashed an entire celestial corridor with just a flute and an attitude problem. Doesn't matter. She won't say anything unless she wants to. Eli tilted his head. What's a celestial corridor? That, Alexandria grinned, is a story for after dinner, or at least after someone stops looking like a ghost with a trauma cloud. He smiled faintly. You're weird. Thank you. Aurora adjusted the blankets over Eli's brother, her face still unreadable. Then she stood again, walking toward the arch. Where are you going? Eli asked. To get water. I'll go. No, she said. Stay. He paused, looked down. Okay. Alexandria watched Aurora disappear into the corridor, then turned to Eli, lowering her voice slightly. She's probably going to disappear again after this, she said. She always does. That's her thing.
Eli frowned.
Why? Alexandria shrugged. Because she doesn't know how to stay still. Or because she doesn't think she deserves to. Eli didn't answer. He just looked back at his brother. A minute passed. Maybe two. Then Aurora came back, holding a crystal bowl of glowing water. She handed it to Eli. For him, she said. Eli nodded, gently tilting the bowl to his brother's lips. The older boy drank slowly, even while asleep. Aurora watched, then turned again. Alexandria sighed. You're leaving again already? Aurora paused at the doorway. Not far. Eli looked up at her. You'll be here when he wakes up, right? Aurora stopped. Her eyes met his. Yes. Then she walked out, vanishing into the soft glow of Asterius. Alexandria leaned back and exhaled. She's lying, you know, she muttered. Eli looked at her. She always says yes, Alexandria said. And then she walks until the stars change. Maybe this time she won't. Alexandria blinked at him, then smiled. You're not bad, kid. Neither are you. Don't ruin my reputation. They sat there in the silence of a realm between worlds. Chapter 187. Spiral. Vale smirked as he wiped his hands on the cloth over his shoulder. Come on. You boys done eating? Carrion Soul doesn't wait. Joshua glanced at his half-empty plate, then back at Vale. You're gonna show us around? Damn right. You think I just cook dragon beef all day? This city's got stories to tell. And someone better explain how it's been holding together without you playing Archon babysitter. Adam stood, stretching his back. Guess we're getting the old man tour.
Val just grundtid.
Old man's still got faster reflexes than most of the guards on the sky steps. Let's move. They stepped out of Vale's table and back into the golden dusk of Carrion Soul. The city was transitioning, sky darkening into deep blue, street lamps casting a soft twilight glow. Mana trails floated like threads in the air, pulsing faintly above the streets. There was music, always music. Somewhere high up, a group of avian were harmonizing mid-flight, their wings catching the last rays of the sun. Vale walked ahead, motioning with a flick of his wrist. All right, first stop. Look up. They did. Far above, the ether crown floated. A massive ring of crystal and gold, suspended by ancient wards, slowly rotated above the city's core. It wasn't just for show. The crown regulated all the ley line activity in the region. Without it, Carrion Soul would have been a mana crater ages ago. Still works? Joshua asked, squinting. Barely. The current magisters don't know how to maintain it properly. They got their heads too far up their robes, arguing over who gets to hold the scepter of balance or whatever ceremonial garbage they pass around now. Adam looked unimpressed. So who's actually running the city?
Val Sayhed.
Depends who you ask. Technically, it's the Council of 12. Magisters, guild lords, there's 3 names you need to remember. He held up a finger. First, Lady Vereen, Alari noble, runs the spell guard and keeps the city from collapsing under arcane debt. Smart. Dangerous. Would love to dissect you, Joshua, just to see how an ex-archon ticks. Second finger. Duke Gorham, Dwerin Brute, took over the trade sectors after the old guilds got wiped in the Blackfire riots. Controls 90% of the city's weapons flow. Not a bad guy, but he's always prepping for a war that isn't coming. Third finger. And then there's the spiral. Joshua blinked. That sounds ominous. It is, Vale said. No one knows what it is. Not a person. Not a group. Just a whisper. People go missing. Artifacts disappear. Prophets say weird things in their sleep. Spirals always somewhere in the middle. Even the old seers stopped looking. Adam looked around. And the people? How are they handling all this? Vale glanced at a group of street performers. A Minori girl doing gravity-defying flips while her fox familiar clapped its paws in rhythm. People adapt. Same as always. It's not the golden age, but it ain't the collapse either. Carrion stubborn. Won't fall easy. They crossed a bridge arched over a slow, glowing river. Underneath, small boats drifted, leaving trails of light as they moved. Couples sat on the edges, feet dangling off, chatting in soft voices. This used to be where the Seraph Guard patrolled, Joshua said, mostly to himself. You could hear their wings before you saw them. Yeah, Vale replied, hands in his pockets. Now it's just lovers and loners. They passed into the night market, an alley-turned labyrinth that opened wide beneath the city's belly. Hanging lanterns floated above tight walkways. Stalls stacked with potions, relics, cursed rings, and talking cats lined the edges. Somewhere a flute played off-key. A hooded vendor hawked shadowberries, and a drunk minotaur was trying to convince a ghost to duel him. Vale guided them without pause. This part's changed the most. Used to be just food and fabrics. Now it's where half the black market flows. Spiral leaves trails here. Sometimes. Joshua ran a hand along a cracked stone wall. It hummed faintly under his touch. Still feels alive. Carrion's always been alive. even when she's bleeding. They walked past a memory fountain, a silver pool that showed glimpses of those who stood before it. For a second, Joshua's reflection shimmered into a younger version of himself. Gold armor, burning wings, a crowd cheering. He looked away. Adam didn't say anything. Vale kept walking. Eventually, they climbed up one of the sky steps, long, spiraling staircases that led to the higher districts. The air grew thinner, the architecture more intricate. Spires turned to towers, and towers turned to floating estates tethered by chain and spell. They reached a balcony overlooking the whole city. Carrion Sol stretched out below them like a tapestry of light and history. Airships glided in the distance. Towers pulsed with internal mana flows. High above, the ether crown gleamed against the stars. This, Vale said, resting a hand on the railing, this was the city you helped build, even if you don't want to claim it. Joshua stared in silence. They still tell stories about you, Vale continued. Not all good ones, but the ones that matter, the ones with heart they remember. The boy who lit the sky on fire to stop the falling star. The Archon who knelt to save a child instead of chasing a demon. You're still in this city's blood. Joshua didn't respond. Adam broke the silence. So, you brought us up here for nostalgia or intel?
Val smiled faintly.
Bit of both. He turned eyes serious now. Listen, something's shifting. There's pressure under the surface. The ley lines are twitching. Old gods poking their heads out of graves they were never buried in. And that spiral, it's waking up. Joshua's eyes narrowed. Waking up to what? That's the problem, Vale said. No one knows. But whatever it is, it remembers you. A wind rolled in, tugging at their coats. From the heights of Carrion Sol, the city glowed like a living thing. Beautiful, unstable, eternal. Vale lit a small mana stick between his fingers and took a drag, exhaling a faint blue wisp. So, you staying? Or just passing through again like some story ghost? Joshua looked at the city one last time, then back at Vale. Don't know yet, but if something's coming, I'm not letting it take this place without a fight. Adam gave a lazy nod. Guess that means we're in it. Again.
Val grinned.
Good. Then let's make sure you know where the real fight's brewing. Come on. I've got one more place to show you. He turned, heading toward a lift that led even higher, toward the council spire, and the secrets buried beneath it. Carrion Sol wasn't done with them yet. Not by a long shot. Chapter 188. Welcome home, Zariel. The lift rattled as it climbed. A groaning old thing powered by ancient gears and mana crystals embedded deep into the city's veins. The hum beneath their feet wasn't mechanical. It was alive. A slow pulse of energy that beat like a heart, echoing up through the stone walls. Vale didn't talk much as they ascended. He just stood near the gate, arms folded, eyes watching the rising skyline as if reading something in the clouds. Joshua leaned against the opposite rail, the lights of Carrion Sol washing over his face in soft glows. Adam stood dead center, arms crossed, unreadable as always. The higher they got, the quieter it became. Eventually, the lift stopped with a soft chime. The gates opened. They stepped out onto a narrow platform. Wind tugged at their coats immediately, thin, cold, and whispering. The council spire stood ahead like a needle stabbing the stars. Made of obsidian stone and silver-veined crystal, it shimmered with power that wasn't entirely natural. Vale led the way.
No guards. No checkpoints.
Just silence and the soft crunch of boots on mana-slick stone. This part, he said, voice low, ain't open to the public. You'll see why. The doors opened before them, not from touch or magic, but as if the spire recognized Vale, knew him, trusted him. Inside, the air changed, thicker, older, like walking into a cathedral built before time. The walls glowed faintly with runes, languages long dead. The floor pulsed softly beneath every step. They passed through a hall lined with statues, 12 of them. Joshua paused by one, a tall figure with wings of light and a sword of flame. his own face carved into stone. They still kept this? He muttered. Vale didn't stop walking. Of course, the council loves its relics. Makes them feel like they're standing on something solid. Adam glanced up at another statue, a horned woman with chains around her wrists and fire in her eyes. She looks friendly, he said. Archon of binding, Vale replied. Not someone you'd want at a party. They walked deeper into the spire, until the statues ended and the corridor narrowed into a spiral staircase. They descended for a long while.
No torches. No lights.
Just the glow from the walls. Finally, the stairs ended at a chamber. Circular. Carved into the bones of the city.
No windows.
Just a single floating orb of crystal at the center, suspended in the air by invisible threads. Vale stepped forward and tapped it once. The orb pulsed. The walls lit up. Not with runes. With moving images. Visions. Echoes. Memories. A battle in the skies. Seraphs against black-winged horrors. A tower collapsing into a pit of stars. A child screaming as magic tore through a marketplace. And then, the spiral. A symbol. Simple. Just a curve curling into itself. But around it, reality bent. The air shimmered. The walls flickered. Joshua felt it in his bones. A pressure behind his eyes. A whisper without sound. This, Vale said, pointing to it, is what I needed you to see. Joshua stared. You recorded this? Didn't have to. The spire remembers. It's a vault. Built during the Dawn Reign. Everything that's happened in Carrion's core gets stored here, whether we want it or not. Adam looked at the spiral. Then at the way the chamber seemed to darken just from its image. Feels wrong. It is. Vale stepped back, letting them take it in. The spiral's not just a rumor. It's old. Older than the city. Maybe older than the realms. It doesn't act like a cult. Doesn't recruit. Doesn't leave messages. It just changes things. Varpsing. Slowly. Joshua narrowed his eyes. What does it want? Vale shook his head. If I knew that, I'd be in a better position than tavern cook and part-time informant. But here's what I do know. The spiral's getting louder. Dreams. Distortions. Mana behaving wrong in places it never used to. The orb shifted. A scene played recent. A rift opening in the middle of a noble district. A scream of light. A girl pulled inside. No blood. No remains. Just gone. Vale's voice dropped. This happened a week ago. Council covered it up. Blamed a mana surge. But I was there. I felt it. Joshua's jaw tightened. So what are you saying? Vale met his eyes. I'm saying whatever the spiral is, it's reacting to you. Your presence here. The moment you crossed back through the Asterius gate, the city pulsed, like a pressure valve breaking.
Adam scoffed.
So it's his fault?
No.
But he's tied to it. Like gravity. Joshua turned from the orb. You want me to fight it. I want you to understand it first. Then burn it if you have to. The orb dimmed. The chamber fell into soft quiet. Vale turned toward the staircase again. Come on. The air's heavy down here. And I'm too old to be breathing forgotten gods. They climbed back up. No one spoke. Even Adam looked thoughtful. Back at the top, the stars had spread wider. The ether crown was glowing stronger now, a faint hum like distant singing echoing from above. Vale stopped near the edge of the spire, overlooking the city again. You see it different now? Joshua nodded slowly. Yeah.
Ido.
Vale lit another mana stick, squinting into the night. Then I hope you're ready, because if this thing keeps pushing, it's not gonna stay whispers and visions.
Adam streçed.
Let's just hope it bleeds.
Val smirked.
Everything bleeds. You just have to know where to cut. Joshua looked out across Carrion's soul. Still glowing, still alive, still moving like nothing was wrong. But he felt it now. The shift, the pulse, the whisper just beneath the silence. The spiral wasn't a story. It was a storm. And it was coming. Elsewhere. The architect of ruin drifted through the void, formless, weightless, yet vast as a collapsing star. His presence twisted the space around him, cracks forming in reality like veins of black lightning. His eyes, if they could be called that, flared as visions pierced the silence. Zariel standing once more in Carrion Soul. The city still breathing, still lit, still defiant. A low chuckle escaped him, warped and distant.
Carrion Sol?
That pretty little marble garden?
No.
That place is too quiet, too clean. I won't meet you there, Zariel. His voice splintered into echoes across the void. I'll bring it back. The real stage, the screams, the broken sky, the ground still soaked in angel blood. He raised a hand, and with a flick, the nothingness around him twisted, fragments of time and memory grinding into place. A battlefield began to shape from raw entropy. Shattered towers, skies on fire, earth cracked wide as if the gods themselves had clawed it open. The architect's grin stretched wider than his face. Yes, we'll finish what started back then. You'll come. You have to. He threw his head back and laughed, wild, jagged, rising and rising until it split the silence of the void like a shriek from a dying star. It echoed through forgotten corners of the realm, where even time had stopped listening. And the battlefield kept building. A throne of rusted wings. A sky of red storms. A war made from memory. The architect opened his arms to it all, grinning through the chaos. Welcome home, Zariel. Chapter 189. Caden Dark 1. Alfred ducked under a sweeping arc of frost and shot forward, his boots kicking up embers. His fists burned, a deep crimson glow crawling up his arms, veins lit like molten steel. He threw a punch that cracked the air like thunder. Arya met it with a wall of frost, a spiral of ice wrapping her like a cyclone. The punch shattered part of the shield, sent her skidding back, boots scraping across stone. She didn't fall, just smirked. You're still too slow.
Alfred Spatzmoke.
And you're still cocky. She spun, hurling a volley of ice daggers. He rolled forward, fire exploding from his shoulders as he launched into the air. The forge's upper frame groaned from the heat blast. He came down like a meteor, fist first. Arya met him mid-fall, her body carried upward by a burst of sub-zero wind. Ice and flame collided in a halo of steam and cracked mana. Down below, in the shadows, Draken and Varian sat on an old workbench that looked 1 second away from collapsing under their armor weight. Draken, face half hidden under a chipped hood, cleaned his blade with slow, measured strokes. His eyes never left the sparring match above. Same rhythm, he muttered. Alfred still leads with heat before movement. Makes him predictable. Varian shrugged, his white hair tied back tight, scars lining his jaw like forgotten war etchings. Arya knows. She's not pushing him, just testing distance. She's toying with him. She always does. Makes it more interesting. Draken snorted. She's gonna end up freezing his ribs again. Good. Might make him learn. They shared a quiet laugh, old friends, not because they were soft with each other, but because they'd survived enough bloodshed together to skip the small talk. Across the room, Jordan and Alexandria were at it. Again. Jordan leaned against a pillar, chewing on what looked like half a cinnamon bun. You ever shut up? Just once? For a full sentence. Alexandria sat cross-legged on a crate, scribbling into a notebook that glowed faintly with cursed script. She didn't look up. You ever stop eating like a starved goblin? Listen, notebook girl, I burn calories fast. You barely burn brain cells. You wish you were as brainless as me. Must be exhausting thinking 23 hours a day and still being wrong. She flicked a hex from her fingers, small, blue, and buzzing. Jordan yelped and slapped at his neck. That's illegal, he shouted, halfway laughing. Then report me. See how fast they laugh you out of the tower. Next time I'm replacing your ink with snake blood. Already did it to myself last month. Didn't even flinch. You're actually insane. Kaeldar groaned. He exhaled, long and annoyed. By the hells? Kaeldar muttered, voice like gravel sliding through thunder. Can the two of you shut your mouths before I eat one of you just to find out if sarcasm has a flavor? Jordan pointed. Eat her first. Eat him, Alexandria said at the same time. Ugh, Kaeldar grumbled, closing his eyes. Children. Above, Alfred landed hard, sliding to a stop on his heels. Steam rose from his skin. His jacket was half burned off, and the air around him shimmered from the heat. Arya touched down a few feet away, snowflakes trailing off her cloak, frost gathering on her cheeks. Round 7, she said, brushing a lock of white hair behind her ear. Still no hits. Thought I nicked you. She held up a patch of barely chipped ice on her arm. Try harder. Sadist. She just smiled. Compliment. Varian stood and clapped once. All right, that's enough. You'll cook the walls if you keep it up. Draken sheathed his blade, his voice flat. We need them focused anyway. Can't waste all the edge down here. Alfred wiped sweat from his brow and looked at the group. So, we ready to talk plan? Or is this still the warm-up? The room quieted a bit. Alexandria hopped off her crate and dusted herself off. Jordan finished his snack. Kaeldar cracked one eye open. Before anyone could say anything, Aurora stepped through first, long coat fluttering behind her like it had a mind of its own. Calm. Always too calm. Behind her came Eli, ever silent, his eyes darting over the group like he was checking for missing limbs. And then, the boy, tall, around 16 or 17. Lean, but there was strength under the clean tunic and worn boots. His face. Sharp cheekbones, tired eyes that looked like they'd seen more than they should, and silver hair that looked just a shade too familiar under the forge light. Fresh clothes, boots still a little too new, but what really stopped everyone cold was his face. Is it just me? Alfred said, squinting. Or does that kid look like Adam? Arya didn't blink. He also looks like you, doofus. Alfred turned slowly, frown setting in like a thundercloud. What the hell is that supposed to mean? She tilted her head, arms crossed. Maybe you had a secret affair. Some wild night we don't know about.
Alfred gecked. Arya.
But no, absolutely not. Never. That's disgusting. Relax, she smirked. Just messing with you. But the room was already sliding into that eerie stillness, the kind where everyone knew something weird was happening, but no one wanted to be the first to say it. Then the boy stepped forward, looked right at Arya and Alfred, and said, voice steady, casual like it was normal, Uncle, Auntie. Everyone blinked. Alfred and Arya turned to each other, then back to the boy, and in perfect, synchronized disbelief, You're Adam's kid? The boy smiled just a bit. Yeah.
No dramatic pause. No hesitation.
Just yeah. Alfred's mouth dropped. Arya took a full step back. Kaeldar actually sat up. Jordan muttered, what the actual? And Alexandria? Alexandria was already moving. She was in front of him in an instant, fingers pressed to the boy's chin, turning his face left and right like she was examining an ancient relic. Her eyes darted across every feature. The brow, the cheekbones, the jaw. Her voice came out low. You've got his eyes. And his attitude. Thanks, the boy said. What's your name? She asked. He stood straight, confident, like he'd practiced saying this 100 times. Caden Dark. Everyone froze. Jordan dropped the half-eaten manna bun in his hand.
Alfred blinked.
You're kidding. Kaeldar muttered something ancient under his breath. Alexandria's voice turned sharp. Dark? As in, no, that can't. Who's your mother? The boy looked at her, then turned slowly, and pointed at Aurora. Silence. Like time held its breath. Alexandria whipped around. You? Aurora, arms folded, didn't flinch. Yes. You. Yes, Alexandria. Caden scratched the back of his neck. She's my mom.
Yeah. Surprise.
Alfred stark gerät.
Hold up. Wait a damn minute. You're telling me Adam somehow managed to... With Aurora. Arya turned to Aurora, eyes wide. You? With him. Kaeldar made a strangled choking sound. Jordan covered his mouth. You people need holy water. Eli muttered under his breath. This is why I don't talk. Aurora raised one eyebrow. Is this truly so unbelievable? Everyone in unison. Yes. Chapter 190. Cayden Dark 2. The embers in the forge glowed low now. The sparks that once danced in the air felt frozen in place. Like the whole room was waiting for someone to hit play again. Everyone stood still, like statues with too many questions jammed into their throats. Cayden stood at the center of it all, hands tucked into his belt, trying not to look too awkward. Arya narrowed her eyes. Okay. How? When? How did that even happen? Alfred waved both hands in the air like he was conducting a panic symphony. No, seriously, when did this happen? Where was I? How long has this been going on? Aurora stepped forward, voice calm as always. It didn't happen here. It happened in the future. Jordan nearly choked. I'm sorry, what? The future? Aurora repeated. 78 years from now. Draken blinked. You're telling me you too? He pointed from her to Cayden. Hooked up in the future, had a kid, and then sent him back in time like some divine Amazon delivery? Aurora shrugged. Roughly. Kaeldar rubbed his temples. I regret not staying asleep. Cayden cleared his throat. Okay. Everyone calm down before someone faints. He stepped forward, and for the first time, the room quieted on its own. Not because they were forced to, because there was something in Cayden's tone, calm, real, like someone who's been holding something heavy for too long. I'm from 78 years into the future. My father, Adam Dark, sent me back here, to this time, said I needed to learn, said I was getting soft. He gave a small bitter smile, said I'd been protected too long by the things he built, that I wouldn't survive what's coming unless I saw what the world was like before it shattered. Alfred raised an eyebrow. Before what shattered? Cayden looked at him. Everything. The cities, the skies, the borders. The realms don't just fracture, they fall. The spiral, it wins, or something worse does. I never got the full story. I just lived in the ashes. He took a breath. The forge hissed behind him like it was listening too. My dad. He's not just a powerful mage or whatever you think he is. He's an Omnicron, top of the chain. Beyond archmages, beyond celestials, beyond anything with rules. He built empires with a flick of his finger. Stopped wars by just showing up. The kind of man that made time itself hesitate. Jordan leaned forward, eyebrows high. And he still couldn't save the future? Cayden looked down. Maybe he could've. Maybe he tried. But the future, it was messed up. You couldn't tell who was leading anymore. Who was fighting what. The spiral infected reality itself. And my dad said if I was going to earn my place, if I was going to understand what we were protecting, I had to do it the hard way. Alexandria asked. So he sent you back? And then what? He stripped me, Cayden said. Took everything. My arcana. My strength. My divine aura. Even the sigil of dark. Varian's head snapped up. He took your sigil? Cayden nodded. All of it. Said I needed to start raw. The only thing he left me with was a bit of celestial blood. Just enough to keep me from dying outright. Alfred muttered under his breath. That's cold. Yeah, Cayden agreed. But he said it was necessary. Said if I didn't understand life without power, then I'd never be able to protect those without it. He paused. I landed 40 miles outside this timeline's eastern ridge. Half naked, unconscious, zero magic, zero memory. Would have died in a ditch if a couple hadn't found me. He smiled again. This one was softer. Real. They were farmers. Simple people. The kind that didn't ask where you came from if you were bleeding. Just gave you soup and a warm bed and told you to hush. Their names were Toma and Lyra. Jordan scratched his head. Wait.
Elias parents.
Cayden nodded. Yeah. They were already raising Eli when I showed up. We were the same age, kinda. Well, technically I was 17 and he was like 9, but the timeline warped that fast. Eventually we were just Brothers. A beat of silence. They didn't have to take me in, Caden said. But they did. And for 3 years I was just a kid. We fixed walls, fed horses, got yelled at by Lyra when we came back muddy. Caden's eyes drifted to the floor, voice dropping. Then the hunters came. Alfred leaned forward. What hunters? The Black Spiral remnants. They found out who I was, maybe by scent, maybe by blood. I don't know. They wore masks, fired hex-loaded rifles that could tear through soul barriers. They weren't there for questions. Just blood. Draken cursed under his breath. They burned the farm, Caden said, jaw clenched. Toma died trying to stall them. Lyra was gone before we even saw her fall. Me and Eli ran. For days. Slept in hollow trees. Drank from swamp puddles. Ate bark. His voice cracked a little. Caden's hands balled into fists at his sides, jaw tight. The firelight caught the edge of his expression. Old grief behind new strength. I don't even remember what I did, he said. We were cornered near the cliffs outside Grath Hollow. They had us surrounded. Guns raised. I told Eli to run, but he wouldn't. He never does. He let out a shaky breath. Then one of them shot. I remember turning, screaming his name, reaching for something, anything. And that's when it happened.
Arya stepped closer, brow furrowed.
What happened? Caden looked up, eyes glowing faintly. Not with heat, not with mana, with memory. I felt something break open inside me, like glass shattering underwater. And then, the forge groaned behind him, a low metallic creak that didn't match the room's silence. The world slowed down. He looked at his hand, fingers curling slightly, like he could still feel it. I remember seeing the bullet, just hanging in the air. I moved, not fast, just before everything else. My body wasn't even mine anymore. My veins lit up like Starlene's. Celestial blood ignited. And my memory, my real memory, snapped back like a steel whip. Jordan whispered, "You awakened?" Caden nodded. A piece of it. Not everything. Not even close. But just enough to push the first wave back. He exhaled slowly, staring into the floor like it held ghosts. I burned one of their guns to dust with my bare hand. One of them exploded like literally. Just a flash of black fire and gone. I don't remember much after that. Eli said I screamed something in a language he didn't understand, then passed out. Alfred leaned on a railing, arms crossed, voice lower. And you woke up here? Yes. Chapter 191. Alexandria's Pain. Alexandria didn't say anything. She just turned. Quiet. Controlled.
No dramatic gasp. No angry outburst.
Just a small step back, a blink, and then her heels clicked softly as she walked out of the forge room, like she wasn't walking away from a heartbreak, but from a meeting that had gone on too long. Still, everybody noticed. Even the forge, with its low flame and creaking metal, seemed to dim just a little more. Caden looked up, eyes following her retreating form, brows pulling together like he was going to say something, but didn't. Maybe he didn't know what to say. Maybe he wasn't supposed to. Aurora didn't turn. She knew. Jordan rubbed the back of his neck, glanced around. Everyone else was still rooted in place, processing. The truth, the kid, the spiral, the future. All of it. But Jordan, he stepped away. I got it, he muttered before Alfred or Draken could even say anything. He jogged after her, boots echoing across stone as he turned the corner. He found her in the corridor outside, arms pressed against the cold iron wall, head bowed between them. Her shoulders didn't shake, but her fingers gripped the edge like she wanted to punch through it. Hey, Jordan said gently. No answer. He walked up, gave her space, leaned on the wall beside her. Kinda heavy night, huh? She didn't laugh, didn't even look at him. He's real, she said. That's the part that hurts the most. Caden, he's real. Jordan nodded slowly. Yeah, realer than a ghost story. She turned her head, eyes wet but not spilling. Not yet. Her voice came out quieter. That means Adam ends up with her. Aurora. She nodded, the motion stiff. I spent years trying to be close, not forcing it, just hoping. Thinking maybe if I stayed strong enough, fought long enough, if I was there at the right moment, he'd choose me. That maybe I'd be the one beside him when it was all over. Jordan watched her. He didn't interrupt. But now we know, don't we? She whispered. There's a sun, a timeline, an ending that doesn't have me in it. She looked away fast, like the tears were starting to win. Jordan stepped in a little closer, not pushing, just enough. It doesn't mean you don't matter, he said. Alexandria let out a bitter exhale. Don't give me that. I'm not one of the cadets who needs a pep talk. I know how this stuff works. Time isn't gentle. It's brutal. If he ends up with Aurora, if Caden exists, then that's it. That's the fixed line. I never had a chance. You had more than a chance, Jordan said. You had him, for a long time, and maybe not in the way you wanted. She shook her head. It wasn't enough. Jordan went quiet. Then he looked at her, really looked, and his voice lowered. You want to know the part that hurts me? She blinked at him, surprised. I saw you fight for him. I saw you bleed beside him. I saw you hold your ground when he did not even look at you the same way you look at him. I thought, damn, if anyone's going to make it into Adam's heart, it's her. And then? She asked. And then he looked at Aurora like she was gravity, like everything else was noise. And I hated it. Alexandria's eyes widened slightly. You weren't the only one hoping for something that never landed, Jordan said. The silence stretched long after that. A wind stirred down the corridor. Cold. Hollow. It's not fair, Alexandria said finally. Her voice was small now. Tired. All this training. All this loyalty. And I still end up alone. Jordan leaned forward, resting his arms on his knees. Maybe you're not as alone as you think. She glanced sideways. You mean you? He shrugged. I mean me. And them. And this whole stupid messed up team of misfits and legacy freaks. We may not be love stories, but we're not nothing. A pause. Then she laughed. Just once. Short. Rough. You're an idiot. Jordan grinned. Takes one to love one. She rolled her eyes. But she didn't walk away. Instead, she slid down the wall and sat beside him. For a few minutes, neither of them said anything. Just sat there in the long hallway, letting the world settle around the cracks in their hearts. After a while, Alexandria looked up again. Her eyes were clearer now. You think Caden's ready for what's coming? She asked. Jordan thought about it. Then he said, Nah. She blinked. Seriously. He nodded. But I think he's got the right people around him. She leaned her head back against the wall. Yeah, guess he does. Another beat. Jordan side-eyed her. Still mad. At time? At fate? At Adam? All of the above. Alexandria smiled faintly. Yeah, a little. Jordan nudged her shoulder with his. Good. Means you're still you. She let her head rest there, just for a moment, against his. Not because she was in love, but because she needed someone who stayed. And Jordan always did. Back in the forge, Caden stared at the place where Alexandria had stood. Aurora placed a hand on his shoulder. Give her time. Caden said nothing, because deep down he knew time was exactly the thing they'd already lost. Back to Crayon Soul. What would you do if you suddenly found out you're a dad? Joshua asked, a sly grin creeping across his face. Adam blinked, caught off guard. That'd be pretty damn hard, considering I haven't been with anyone in a long time. Joshua couldn't hold it in. He burst out laughing, shaking his head. Oh man, I can't wait to see your face when we get back to the Asterius. Adam narrowed his eyes. What the hell does that mean? Joshua just kept walking, hands behind his head like he was out for a stroll. That smug look on his face wasn't helping. Josh, Adam said again, firmer this time. What do you know? I'm just saying, Joshua said, drawing the words out. Life's full of surprises, especially when you've got legacy energy hanging around your aura. Adam froze in his tracks. Don't mess with me. What do you mean legacy energy? Joshua turned to face him, walking backward now, clearly enjoying every second of this. Can't say. Sworn to secrecy, he said, tapping an invisible zipper across his lips. But let's just say you've got a future-shaped surprise waiting for you. And oh man, it's gonna be rich. Adam's expression flattened. If this is another one of your dumb pranks. No prank, Joshua said, spinning back around. You'll see soon enough. Just remember to breathe when it hits you. Adam walked in silence after that, jaw tight, gears clearly turning in his head. Joshua didn't say another word either. He didn't have to. The smirk on his face said it all.
Chapter 192. Adam meets Kaiden.
The sky cracked open like a curtain being drawn too fast. A pillar of white light burst down from the clouds, humming like some divine elevator from the heavens. Wind kicked up around the Asterius courtyard. Gravel scattering, cloaks flapping, trees groaning as branches bent toward the source. Then thwump. Two figures emerged from the beam. Adam, boots first, coat trailing behind him like a cloak cut from midnight, and beside him Joshua, with that annoying smirk still plastered on his face like it was tattooed there. The light vanished. The world went still. Adam blinked once. Then again. They weren't alone. Every single person from the forge room was out in the courtyard. Aurora, Kaiden,
Alfred,
Aria, Alexandria, Jordan, Varian, even Draken, who looked like he'd only just woken up from a nap he didn't consent to. They were all staring. Not just looking. Staring. Adam took one step forward, eyes narrowing slightly as his hand instinctively drifted toward his belt. Not for a weapon, but more like a reflex. Like something big was about to happen, and his body wanted something to anchor him. Okay, Adam said slowly, glancing around. Why's everyone looking at me like I just grew a tail? Nobody answered. Not right away. Then his gaze stopped. Right on a face. It was just off-center in the crowd. Slightly taller than most, standing still with his arms behind his back, posture military sharp. But the expression? Neutral. Too neutral. Adam's eyes locked with the young man's, and he felt his breath hitch. That face. It was like looking in a mirror someone had left in the sun too long. Warmer. Softer. Younger and older at the same time. That bone structure. The eyes. Hell, even the way he was standing felt familiar. Adam turned his head slowly toward Alfred. What? He said, voice calm but not casual. Did you do? Alfred raised a brow, utterly unbothered. Why am I always the one you people accuse first? Arya coughed into her hand, trying way too hard to look innocent. As much as I'd love for Alfred to be the father in some very alternate reality, unfortunately, he's not. Adam snapped his eyes toward her. Then who is? Alfred burst out laughing, loud and echoing, like he'd just watched the punchline of a joke that had taken 5 years to set up. Arya didn't laugh. She punched Alfred right in the ribs. A little tick appeared on her temple as if her patience gauge had just dropped to 0. I am not the one who mothered the child, she snapped. Are you out of your damn mind? She pointed, not at herself, but at Aurora. Adam's head turned like a door creaking in a horror movie. Slowly, eyes wide now. Aurora? He asked. She didn't blink, didn't flinch, just met his gaze the way she always did, like a mountain looking down on a storm. He blinked again. His mind was doing cartwheels, somersaults, trying to do math that had no numbers. Aurora? The stoic tactician who treated intimacy like a distraction? The woman who once declined a marriage proposal mid-battle because it would have compromised formation integrity? And yet, that quiet pause, the way she rested a hand on Kaiden's shoulder, the way she didn't explain herself. Then it hit him. Joshua's words. Legacy energy. Future-shaped surprise. Just remember to breathe. Adam's heart dropped. He looked back at the kid. At the man. Kaiden stepped forward. Just one step. But it was enough to make the entire courtyard hold its breath. Then he nodded. And said, Yes, father. Adam didn't move. Caden's eyes softened. I'm your son, Caden Dark. From the future. The words hung in the air like frost. Nobody breathed. Not even the wind.
Adam stared.
Then took a half step back. No, he muttered. There's no way. That's not possible. I would have known. I would have remembered something like that. Caden tilted his head slightly. You don't remember because it hasn't happened yet. Not here. Not in this branch of time. Joshua clapped his hands. Okay. Who wants to tell Adam about quantum inheritance, divergent anchors, and timefold echoes? Anyone?
No.
Adam slowly turned toward him with the look of a man who had absolutely no time for Joshua's bull. Joshua raised both hands, still grinning. Just trying to help. Adam looked back at Caden. Then at Aurora. And for once, she didn't speak first. Because she didn't have to. The look in her eyes said it all. Not regret. Not shame. Just truth. Unmoving. Undeniable. Adam let out a slow breath and ran a hand through his hair. How? He started, then stopped. When? Caden didn't smile. Didn't grandstand. Just answered like someone who'd rehearsed it too many times. 78 years from now. You and Aurora. I was born into a war. Raised inside a fortress made of dying stars. And when the world burned, you sent me back.
Adam blinked.
I sent you? You said it was the only way I'd survive. That I needed to learn what life was before the spiral shattered everything. That I had to earn the strength to protect what mattered. Even if it meant being nothing again. The silence came back. Heavy. So thick it felt like it could break something. Arya's mouth hung open slightly. Alfred was still recovering from the gut punch, muttering "worth it" under his breath. Alexandria stood off to the side with Jordan, arms crossed, face unreadable. And Adam? He looked at Caden again. Harder this time. This time not just with disbelief, but with something deeper, something ancient, like the part of him that had fought through gods and voids and dark crowns was stirring. Because now, standing in front of him, was a piece of the future he didn't choose, but one he might be destined for. He took one step forward. Okay, he said. Caden raised a brow. Okay? He asked. Adam looked at him. You're saying you're my kid, right? From the future. Sent back because of some apocalyptic spiral mess. Caden nodded. Adam tilted his head. Do you have my temper? Absolutely. Adam rubbed his face. Fantastic. Then something broke in his expression. Some invisible wall. And he laughed. Just once. Quiet and weirdly genuine. Well, he said, guess I better stop sleeping with a dagger under my pillow. You're probably house-trained, right? Caden blinked. Then, a slow, reluctant smile tugged at the edge of his mouth. Mostly. Aurora exhaled softly. The tiniest hint of tension faded from her stance. Joshua leaned toward Arya and whispered, Called it. She elbowed him in the ribs without breaking eye contact with the father and son. The courtyard buzzed with silent awe. Nobody cheered. Nobody clapped. Because this wasn't that kind of moment. This was history bending in on itself. Adam looked around at everyone, then muttered, So, who wants to explain this to the elders? Caden raised his hand slowly. I vote not me. Seconded, Joshua added quickly. Aurora stepped forward. I'll handle it, she said calmly. Of course she would. Adam shook his head, still half in disbelief. His eyes met Caden's one more time. This time he didn't look away. And in the silence that followed, time held its breath. Chapter 193, Adam and Alexandria. A ripple tore through space, not with a sound, but with a feeling, like gravity sighing in reverse, like the world itself didn't want him there, but didn't dare stop him either. The sky above the distorted realm bled inwards, color bent, reality cracked like a mirror underwater. Trees twisted into themselves, roots sprouting from their own branches. The ground pulsed. Time slowed down, then sped up again, skipping seconds like a broken reel of film. And then, he stepped through. A man. Or something that wore the shape of one. His figure didn't move like it should have. Every step folded space around him. Limbs lagged a split second behind, like the universe had to catch up to his presence. His long coat dragged behind him, threads floating upward as if gravity was too confused to decide which way was down. And on his face, a spiral, a mask, carved from a material that wasn't wood, or metal or bone. It looked ancient, alive. Endless rings spiraling in from the edges, swirling toward the center where a single black eye glowed faintly behind the slit. The design didn't stay still. It kept turning, slow and silent, as if it was watching you, even when you blinked. He wasn't just a man. He was the spiral king, the eye of collapse, the maw between moments. The air around him fizzed and popped, like the realm was trying to reject him. But the spiral didn't flinch, didn't speak, just kept walking. Behind him, the portal sealed shut like a wound healing the wrong way. His boots pressed down on a path that didn't exist until he walked it. Each step left behind a brief afterimage, like the world had to remember where he'd been to make sense of where he was going. The sky above split into patterns, spirals, like eyes, blinking open and closed across the clouds. A low, groaning hum filled the air. Not quite a scream, not quite a song. He paused at a ridge, looked out across the broken horizon. Mountains floated sideways. Rivers ran in reverse. And at the center of it all, far in the distance, something enormous stirred. A giant sphere of swirling light and shadow, pulsing like a heart made of paradox. His domain. The spiral's voice finally slipped through the cracks of silence. Low, cracked, like a whisper dragged backwards. Still beating, he murmured. Still clinging. He tilted his head slightly. A soft clicking came from the mask as the rings turned inward another notch. They never learn. A single black feather fell from the sky. He caught it between two fingers, then crushed it, and all across the realm things shifted. 1,000 copies of himself flickered into being across the distorted plane. Each walking, turning, kneeling, rising. Some forwards in time, some backwards, some too fast to see. All of them wearing the mask. All of them watching. Because the spiral wasn't just here. He was everywhere. And he had come for what was his. Asterius. Adam sat alone on the edge of the tower, legs dangling off the side like he didn't care about the height, or maybe like he wanted to feel how close the sky really was. The wind tugged at his coat, ruffled his hair. Below him, the city of Asterius shimmered in the early evening haze, neon veins running through its streets like fading memories. But he wasn't looking down. He was looking at nothing, at everything. His mind was still caught in the moment Caden said those words. Yes, Father, I'm your son. That voice, calm, sure.
No hesitaschen.
It had knocked the air clean out of Adam. And now he sat up here, letting the weight of it all settle into his chest like a quiet storm. Footsteps behind him, light ones.
Familiar.
He didn't turn. I thought I'd find you up here, Alexandria said, voice soft. Adam's eyes stayed on the horizon. It's quiet here. Yeah, she murmured, walking closer. Feels like the city knows something's changed. She stopped just a few steps behind him, but didn't sit. She waited, gave him time. What's on your mind? She asked. He finally looked over his shoulder, met her eyes. For a second, his face didn't show anything. Then, with a sigh, he looked away again. Caden, he said. Just that. Alexandria's breath caught. Just for a second. Her expression didn't twist, didn't break, but it shifted. The light in her eyes dimmed, just slightly. Of course it was Caden. Adam heard that pause, that silence where a smile should have been. He knew what it meant. He sighed and looked down at the street again. You like me, he said, not as a question. Alexandria didn't answer right away. Then she walked forward and sat beside him, knees pulled up close. She didn't look at him either, just stared out like he did, like the city had answers she hadn't found yet. I did, she said finally. I mean, yeah, I do. Still. Adam looked at her. She kept her eyes ahead. I think I've always liked you, actually, she said, voice soft. Since the start.
Adam stayed quiet.
I used to tell myself not to feel anything, she continued. That it was just a crush. That it'd fade. But it didn't. Every time you looked back to make sure I was still standing, it got worse. Her voice cracked just a little. She stopped, took a breath. I knew I didn't have a real chance, she said. I knew the kind of story your life was becoming. The kind that doesn't leave room for someone like me. Still, I hoped. She laughed, short and rough. Stupid, right? Hoping you'd see me the way I see you. Hoping maybe, at the end of all this, it'd be me next to you. Adam looked down. Guilt pressed hard into his chest. I'm sorry, he said quietly. Don't be, she said fast. She turned to him, her eyes a little red but no tears yet. Please don't say sorry. This wasn't your fault. I never made you feel obligated. It's just something I carried. My own mess. She looked down at her hands, fingers laced together tightly. Her voice dropped. I think that's what hurts the most. Not that he's your son. Not even that he's from the future. But that I'm not part of it. That somewhere down the line, the version of you who lives doesn't choose me. Adam opened his mouth, but nothing came out. What could he even say? Alexandria smiled, and it hurt to look at. It wasn't bitter. It wasn't angry. It was accepting, and that made it worse. I'm not mad at you, she said. Really, I'm not. I just needed to say it out loud, to stop pretending like I was fine. Because I'm not. She finally looked at him again. Her eyes shimmered under the dim sky. But I will be. One day, I'll be fine. I've survived worse than heartbreak. Adam reached over, placed a hand over hers. You mattered to me, he said. You still do. Alexandria nodded. I know. Just not in the way I wanted. And that's okay. The wind picked up again. A lone paper fluttered past, caught in the breeze. Below them, the lights of Asterius kept glowing, unaware of the small heartbreaks happening above. They sat in silence for a while, side by side, not lovers, not strangers. Just two people who missed each other in time. And eventually Alexandria stood. She wiped her eyes once, gave him one last smile. Take care of Caden, she said. He's got your eyes, but he's going to need your heart.
Adam nodded, silent.
She turned and walked away. And Adam, still on the ledge, stayed there until the sun dipped past the horizon. Alone again, but not unaware. Because now he knew what she had carried. And that kind of weight never truly disappears. Chapter 194, Lyric Gorham. The streets of Crayon Soul were alive with golden lights and laughter. The scent of grilled spices and fresh bread floating through the evening air. A soft breeze tugged at silk banners above, and warm lanterns lit the cobblestone path in a dance of flickering color. Joshua walked hand in hand with Alice, her fingers gently laced with his. She smiled, wearing a dark red dress that fluttered with her steps. He was in a black button-down and casual cloak, trimmed with gold, nothing flashy, just enough for a date night in the city. Can't believe you actually made a reservation, Alice teased, leaning a little into him. I have my moments, Joshua grinned. Only took threatening 3 nobles and a small bribe. She laughed, the sound light and easy, and for a moment, the world felt small and safe. Until, wham, a shoulder slammed into Joshua hard. He barely stepped back, but Alice stumbled a little. He caught her quickly. Watch where the hell you're walking, a voice barked. Joshua looked up to see a young man regaining his balance. He was around their age, but dressed like he owned the city. Deep blue noble robes embroidered with silver, a fur-lined cloak draped over one shoulder, and 3 guards trailing behind him like shadows. His hair was slicked back, eyes sharp with entitlement. You blind or just stupid? The noble spat, brushing imaginary dust from his sleeve. Do you even know who I am? Joshua kept his stance relaxed, calm. Didn't see you.
Sorry.
But the noble wasn't having it. I am Lyric Chim, son of Duke Gorham. Duke, Which means your worthless apology means nothing. Alice raised a brow. We said sorry. But Lyrics just scoffed, turning to the crowd now slowly gathering. Whispers already filled the air. That's the Duke's son. Someone bumped into him? Poor soul. Hope he doesn't get arrested, or worse. The crowd's nervous mutters inflated Lyrics's ego like a balloon. He puffed up his chest and walked in a slow circle, enjoying the attention. You peasants think you can stroll around the upper district without knowing your place? He sneered, voice rising so everyone could hear. You bump into me, you insult my house, and then you act like I'm the problem? Look, man, Joshua said, still calm. We don't want any trouble. Just let it go. Gasps shot through the crowd like lightning. Did he just tell the Duke's son to let it go? He must be suicidal. Even the guards look pissed. Lyrics's guards stepped forward, hands on the hilts of their weapons. One barked. You dare speak to Lord Lyrics like that? Kneel and beg for forgiveness before we drag you to the cells. Joshua sighed, fingers still linked with Alice's. He wasn't scared, just annoyed. But Lyrics wasn't done. Not even close. He glanced at Alice now, and that smug smirk grew wider. Damn! Now that I look at her, she's not bad at all, he said slowly, eyes raking her up and down like she was a thing on display. Tell you what, I'll be merciful. Joshua's jaw twitched. If you hand her over to me for the night, Lyrics continued, I might just forget all about this little misunderstanding. The silence was instant. Even the wind stopped. Alice blinked, expression unreadable. Joshua's hand slipped out of hers. He took a step forward, slow, deliberate. His shadow stretched under the lantern light, and for the first time his easy smile was gone. Lyrics chuckled, amused. What? Did I touch a nerve? You know, Joshua said, voice low. I tried being nice. He rolled his shoulders. One of the guards flinched. I tried to avoid the drama. I really did, because I didn't want to ruin this night. But you, he pointed at Lyrics, decided to open your mouth and let stupidity pour out. You! Joshua stepped in close. Fast. The space between them vanished in a blink. Lyrics stumbled back, eyes wide now. Joshua wasn't smiling anymore. If you ever talk about her like that again, he said, you won't just lose your teeth, you'll lose your voice. The crowd froze. The guards reached for their swords. But before they could draw, a sudden gust of pressure, raw and heavy, burst from Joshua. It wasn't magic. It wasn't anything physical. But it was there, weighty, like the gravity of someone who had seen war and lived through worse. The guards stopped cold. Even Lyrics took a step back. Alice finally stepped up beside Joshua, eyes locked on Lyrics. You're not worth our time, she said flatly. Go home. Joshua looked at her, his calm slowly returning. Then he took her hand again. They turned, walking toward the restaurant like nothing happened. The crowd parted like the sea. No one said a word. Not even Lyrics. Not anymore. Lyrics stood frozen as the couple disappeared down the street. Their backs turned like he wasn't even worth a second glance. People were whispering again. But now it was different. Did you see how fast that guy moved? He didn't even flinch. That pressure. Who is he? Lyrics got silenced like a street punk. The young noble's ears burned with rage. His pride was a shattered glass underfoot, and every whisper cut deeper than a blade. Fools, he muttered, his breath uneven. One of his guards stepped forward carefully. My lord, perhaps we should let this go. That man may not be. Lyrics turned and slapped the guard across the face. Shut up, he roared. You think I'll let this slide? In front of the entire city? That bastard dared to walk away after threatening me? The guard stood still, his jaw clenched, but said nothing. Lyrics's hands curled into fists. His lips twisted, not just in anger now, but hate. He stepped toward the edge of the plaza, eyes locked in the direction Joshua and Alice had gone. I don't care who he is. I don't care what kind of power he's hiding. You don't embarrass the son of a duke and walk away breathing. He pointed to another guard. Find out everything. Who he is, who she is, where they live, where they sleep. I want names, bloodlines, affiliations, everything. The guard hesitated. Lord Lyrax, the Duke has warned us before about stirring trouble with people outside the noble circle. If this man is... Lyrax grabbed the guard by the collar and pulled him close. I said everything. If he's a threat, I'll crush him. If he's a nobody, I'll make him one. And that girl... He smiled, but it wasn't charming anymore. It was rotten. I'll teach her what happens when you mock House Gorham. He released the guard and turned to the others. Tell the enforcers to be ready. If he steps into the upper quarter again, I want him followed. If I see him at that restaurant, if he even breathes near me again, I'll make an example out of him so loud the lower districts will hear the screams. The guards gave tight nods and scattered into the shadows. Lyrax remained still for a moment, his breath ragged, fists trembling. Chapter 195. Lyrax's Obsession. The moon hung high over Crayon Sol, casting silver streaks across its grand walls and gleaming rooftops. But for Lyrax Gorham, the city had lost its glow. He sat in his private chamber inside House Gorham's manor. A lavish space of gold trimmings, dragonbone pillars, and walls lined with ancestral portraits. But he couldn't see any of it. He sat there, slouched in the velvet armchair by the window, staring at the sky with bloodshot eyes. Joshua. That name had carved itself into his skull. For days now he'd sent scouts, informants. Gold had been thrown like candy. Coin to the beggars, threats to the guards, favors owed and called in from black-robed whisperers who worked beneath the streets. Nothing. No home. No family name in the registries.
No gilde filiation.
No record of entry at the city gates. No trace in the noble tower's surveillance runes. Not even a shadow in the census logs. It was like the bastard didn't exist. But Lyrax saw him. The pressure, the precision, the speed. The way he walked like he had nothing to prove, and the city bent around him anyway. And that girl, Alice, the way she looked at him, like she'd found something the rest of the world wasn't even worthy to understand. Lyrax ground his teeth. He stood and walked over to the desk, where a large map of Crayon Sol was spread open. Dozens of markers and pins covered it now. Drawn paths, sightings, rumors. A web of failed leads. He slammed his fist down. Where are you hiding, bastard? His personal aide, Marthiz, a thin man with quiet steps, entered the room silently. We've finished cross-checking all restaurant reservation logs under the name Joshua or Alice. Nothing. We tried known aliases. Still nothing. Lyrax didn't even turn. What about the surveillance crystals in the upper ring? Marthiz hesitated. He doesn't show up on them. Lyrax slowly turned around. What did you just say? I reviewed the archives. When he walks into an area, the image blurs. Sound fizzles. You can't track him. Like something's erasing him. Only the people around him are recorded. Marthiz swallowed. He's like a blank spot. Lyrax's jaw clenched, his fingers twitching. Magic. We brought in a seer. Marthiz nodded. She tried to trace his soul thread. Said it loops, like a mirror reflecting a mirror. She threw up blood and begged us to stop. So he's not a traveler. No, my lord. He's something else. The room was quiet for a long moment. Then Lyrax chuckled, bitter and dry. Oh, you're good, he whispered. You think hiding makes you untouchable? That if you erase your tracks, you erase your consequences. He paced to the far wall, staring at the portrait of his father, Duke Gorham, towering, sharp-eyed, judging. You made me look like a fool, and now you vanish like smoke. Lyrax turned back to Marthiz. I want the underground informed. Every eye, every rat, every ghost that listens for coin. I don't care what it takes. Marthiz hesitated. You wish to involve them? Yes. The Rift Binders, the Thorn Wives, the Coinless Syndicate. Offer blood packs if you have to. My lord, those people. I said everyone. If a child so much as dreams of someone like Joshua, I want to hear about it. His voice cracked slightly at the end, worn thin from sleepless nights. And Alice? Lyrics turned sharply. What about her? Should we take her in? Use her as bait? Lyrics stared for a long moment. His throat tightened, but he shook his head.
No.
Not yet. We don't know enough. If she disappears and he really is something ancient, we risk retaliation. I want information, not a declaration of war. He paused, then added quietly, keep eyes on her. Don't engage. Yes, my lord. Martis bowed and slipped out. Lyrics leaned against the desk, hands shaking. His ego wasn't just bruised now. It was obsessed. He stared down at the city map again, eyes darting over rooftops and alleyways. Joshua, he muttered. I don't know what you are, but I'll find out. If you're some noble brat with forbidden training, I'll drag your house into ruin. If you're a mercenary from beyond the borders, I'll break your contract with your bones. He paused, voice lowering to a near growl. And if you're not from this world, I'll show you what happens when you cross a Gorham. The wind outside howled gently through the glass. Somewhere in the city, laughter rang through the air again. But for Lyrics, the hunt had begun. And he would tear apart the walls of Crayon Soul, brick by brick, until he found the ghost that humiliated him. Asterius. Why don't you take care of that Lyrics kid already? Aurora asked as she stepped beside Joshua, her arms crossed, the soft wind tugging gently at her white jacket. Her eyes reflected the stars above, but her tone was sharp. He's going to make a move on Alice soon. You know how she loves exploring Crayon Soul alone. Joshua didn't turn to face her. He stood at the edge of the rooftop, eyes cast toward the sky, watching the constellations shift above the glowing city. His hands were tucked into his coat pockets, his expression unreadable. He's a kid, Joshua said quietly. His father's a powerful man. I'm not here to start a war with the Gorhams. Not yet. Aurora narrowed her eyes. So you'll just let him get away with it? After what he said to her in the plaza. You saw her face that night. You think she forgot? I didn't forget either, he murmured. Aurora tilted her head. Then why hold back? Joshua finally turned, his gaze calm but heavy. Because I want the city back, Aurora. All of it. The people, the underground, the guilds, the power brokers. If I start pulling noble sons out of their mansions and beating them half to death, the rest will close ranks. I need them comfortable. I need them unguarded. Aurora scoffed. You're playing a long game while Alice is being hunted by a brat with a title and too much pride. There was silence between them for a beat. I watch over her, Joshua said. Aurora frowned. That's not the same as protecting her. I'm not going to let him touch her, he said, and this time his voice was lower. He stepped forward, brushing past her. But I'm not going to strike first. Not until he gives me the excuse. And what if he does touch her? Aurora asked, not moving. Are you still going to worry about alliances when she's hurt? Joshua stopped walking. The stars were above them, but his shadow stretched far behind him, longer than it should have been. If he lays a hand on her, he said, voice flat, I'll burn down his entire bloodline. The way he said it, no anger, no rage. Just fact. Promise written in stone. Aurora didn't respond immediately. She looked up at the stars, brows furrowed, lips tight. I still don't like it, she said finally. You're letting him circle too close. You act like you're in control of this board. But Lyrics isn't just some noble. He's impulsive. He won't wait for your timing. Joshua gave a slight nod. Which is why I have you keeping an eye on him. Aurora blinked. Wait, what? I knew he'd move soon, he said. I just didn't know how soon. So I left you breadcrumbs. I knew you'd put the pieces together. I used your temper, he corrected, which has always been more reliable than any scout I've got. Aurora huffed, folding her arms. So what now? We wait, he said. Let Lyrics come. He turned back to the stars, quiet again. When he finally does, I'll make sure it's public. Loud. So when I break him, no one forgets. Aurora said nothing after that. They both just stood there, high above Crayon Soul, waiting for a storm that was already on its way. Chapter 196. Assists from the Spiral. The shadows in House Gorham didn't move naturally that night. The flickering of candlelight didn't cause them. The moon through stained glass didn't touch them. They moved with a rhythm that didn't belong to anything human, like breath drawn in places no lungs could reach. Lyrics slept uneasily in his chambers, if you could even call it sleep, more like a restless crawl through fractured memories and looping thoughts. His body lay under fine velvet sheets, but his mind was still pacing, still grinding against itself like two dull blades. And in the corner of the ceiling, behind the ornate chandelier carved from wyvern teeth, something was watching. The spiral. A shimmer where the angles didn't quite add up, like the room had one too many walls. It watched the boy twitch. It listened to his breath stutter. It had seen thousands like him before. But this one could be useful. Joshua, Lyrics whispered in his sleep, brow twitching. His voice cracked. The spiral leaned in without moving. You think you're hunting him? It whispered, though no sound escaped into the room. But he's already decided your fate. The words didn't touch Lyrics's ears, but they rooted into his thoughts, like rain seeping into cracked stone. Show him he's wrong. The boy jerked awake. A thin sheen of sweat coated his skin. His hair stuck to his forehead, and his hands trembled as he sat up, staring at the far wall like he'd seen something there. But there was nothing, only portraits, books, a glass of wine still untouched on the desk. And yet, something lingered. Lyrics got out of bed and paced. He pulled open a drawer filled with old city scrolls, trade maps, forbidden history books. Something in his chest itched, something that hadn't been there before, a thought he couldn't shake. What if Joshua wasn't just dangerous? What if he was inevitable? No, he couldn't think like that. But the spiral's whisper was still curling behind his thoughts. Strength. Not power, strength. You need more than spies. You need more than gold. You need tools. Lyrics's fingers hovered over an old map, a hidden part of Crayon Soul, long since buried by noble decree. The depths below, once a prison, now sealed, but beneath it lay remnants of an old war. Wards, vaults, secrets. His hands moved without thinking, brushing off dust, circling 3 locations. Vault Sigma, Shrine of the Drowned Moon, and the Breathing Gate. He didn't know how he remembered those names, but he did. They fear what's buried, the spiral said, just beyond reach, because they built their peace on its bones. Lyrics stood up straight, heart pounding. What if these places held something, anything that could match whatever Joshua was? The spiral whispered again. Begin at the shrine. It took Lyrics 2 days to find someone mad enough to guide him. A sewer runner named Tellin, who lived off rats and myth, took his coin without looking him in the eye. They descended into the old city at dusk. The deeper they went, the more the air changed thick, still, humming with a sound that didn't pass through the ears but the bones. When they reached the Shrine of the Drowned Moon, Lyrics almost turned back. It wasn't a shrine. Not anymore. It was a wound in the world. A place where water floated instead of falling, and words echoed before they were spoken. An altar of black stone jutted from the center, surrounded by a ring of broken chains. Lyrics stepped forward, his boots brushing against bones. Human. Maybe not. Touch it, the spiral whispered. He did. A scream, no hundreds of them, rushed through him like a tidal wave. His vision went white, then black, then something other. And when he came to, he was still there. But something in his hand was glowing. A shard of moon crystal, pulsing like a heartbeat. It burned his palm, but he smiled anyway. Joshua, he muttered, the name tasting different now. The second sight was harder. Vault Sigma. It wasn't on any map anymore. The spiral led him through dreams, through symbols in the street signs, through shadows that leaned the wrong way. And what he found was not a vault, but a machine. A relic of the old architects. A thing that breathed without lungs, that ticked without gears. It asked him a question. Not in words, in memories. It showed him Joshua's face, then his own. Then it waited. Lyrics, bleeding from his nose, whispered one word. Rival. The vault opened. Inside he found a weapon. Not a blade, not a gun. A scroll made of something that looked like silk and bone. And written on it a ritual that had no title, no author. Only this warning. Use this and you won't be you anymore. Lyrics laughed. Bitter. Hollow. I'm already not me. Weeks passed. And the spiral kept feeding him. Not commands. Not orders. Just nudges. Images. Whispers. Joshua can't be beaten by brute force. He must be dismantled. Lyrics began assembling a network. Not his father's nobles. Not Gorham loyalists. Broken things. A failed summoner named Ashra, who spoke to fire like it owed her a debt. A mute rogue who bled ink when he was cut. A smith whose tools only forged cursed things. He built his own little warband. Quietly, beneath the surface. He called them the Pale Choir, because when they moved no one saw them, but everyone heard them afterward. He tested the moon shard's power on a street gang. The screams didn't stop for hours. The ritual, he tried it in secret, and the thing he summoned didn't stay long. But it looked at him, like it recognized him, and it smiled. Back in House Gorham, Lyrics stopped sleeping altogether. He talked to walls now, or maybe just to the spiral. He didn't know anymore. His reflection didn't match his movements. The servants stopped looking him in the eye. But none of it mattered. He could feel it. He was getting closer. To something bigger than revenge. Bigger than pride. Purpose. One night he stood at the rooftop of Gorham Tower, overlooking Crayon Soul. Below, the city moved like a breathing beast. He could feel it shifting, changing. Soon, the spiral whispered. Lyrics didn't flinch. I want him to suffer, he said. Not just fall. I want him to know he lost. And he will, the spiral replied. But only if you let go of what you were. Stop being the sun. Become the storm. Lyrics's eyes glinted under the moonlight. Then tell me where to go next. The spiral smiled. Not with a mouth, but with the city itself. Streetlights flickered in a pattern only Lyrics could see. Ravens flew in a spiral over the Spire district. A beggar laughed and whispered, "The breathing gate opens in 3 days." Lyrics didn't ask how he knew. He just nodded. Because now he didn't need faith. He had momentum. And Joshua? Joshua wouldn't see it coming. Far beneath the ground, the spiral coiled deeper into the roots of Crayon Soul. It didn't need to fight Joshua. Not yet. Because it had Lyrics. And Lyrics was almost ready. Chapter 197, Lyrics Attacks. The sun hung low over Crayon Soul, its golden light washing across the marble towers and winding bridges like melted glass. The middle district buzzed with life. Banners of every color fluttered between stone archways. Magical symbols glowed above street lamps, and voices of every species mingled in the air. It was tournament day. And it wasn't just any tournament. The Celestial King himself had sanctioned this one. A once-in-a-decade show of strength and diplomacy, drawing in champions and warlords, mystics and monarchs, all under the guise of performance. But everyone knew what it really was. A gathering of power. And this year, it was where Joshua planned to announce his return. Adam walked at the front of the small group, his cloak brushing the ground behind him, silver eyes calm but alert. Beside him, Joshua moved with casual confidence, dressed in a sleek black vest and red-lined cloak, Caden trailing close in similar colors. Alice stayed close to Joshua, her fingers gently brushing his sleeve now and then, her eyes sharp behind the soft smile she wore. As they turned the final bend toward the main plaza, the enormous venue came into view. A floating coliseum built atop a hovering disk of crystal and stone, surrounded by glowing chains anchored to sky pillars. Spectators were already lining up in long, flowing robes, armor, or enchanted gear, beings of every race filing into the arcane elevators, chattering excitedly. "That's it," Caden said, awestruck. "The Zenith Arena." Joshua smirked. "You should see it from the top. It's like standing in the eye of a storm. Or a lightning rod," Adam muttered. Ahead, standing at the base of the lift and looking extremely out of place in a bright orange scarf and greasy apron, was Vale, grinning, waving with one hand while holding a meat skewer in the other. "There's our invite," Alice said, nudging Joshua with a smile. But the moment was shattered. A shriek tore through the air, followed by a blur of violet energy ripping down the plaza, straight toward them. "Move!" Caden shouted. But Adam didn't. He simply raised one hand, calm, measured, and flicked his fingers. The air cracked. The incoming figure was yanked mid-flight as if reality itself had changed direction. A violent burst of pressure bent the air, flinging the attacker sideways, smashing through a merchant stall and skidding across the plaza tiles. Wood splintered. Dust rose. People screamed. Guards turned instantly, swords drawn, magic flaring. Vale didn't flinch. He just took a slow bite of his skewer. "Every damn time," he muttered, chewing. The dust cleared. The figure groaned and staggered up. Hair wild. Cloak shredded. A cracked spiral mask hanging crooked off one ear. "Lyrics." Joshua's face went still. "Of course it's him," he muttered. Lyrics spat blood to the side, his jaw twitching with rage. "You think you can parade through this city like you own it?" he roared. "You think just showing up makes you its leader again?" People were watching now. Crowds slowing. Curious eyes turning. Exactly the kind of attention Joshua had hoped to avoid, until the right moment. "Not the time," Adam warned, stepping in front of Caden. Lyrics's eyes locked on him and burned hotter. "You think you're untouchable. All of you, because you've got old stories and power behind your name. But you don't belong here anymore. You're ghosts wearing the faces of men." Joshua stepped forward slowly, calm but heavy with presence. "Lyrics," he said. "Walk away." "I won't," Lyrics snarled. "You humiliated me. You took everything from me." "I let you walk last time," Joshua said, voice lower now. "That won't happen again." The crowd murmured louder. People pushed closer. And Lyrics smiled. Because this was the stage he wanted. "I don't care who you were," he snapped. "You're nothing now, and I'll make sure the world sees it." From under his cloak, he pulled out a small orb, pulsing with dark light. Aurora, now arriving behind the group, froze. "The spiral's mark," she whispered. "That's not an ordinary artifact." Joshua's eyes narrowed. "What did you do, Lyrics?" Lyrics's smile widened, cracked and bitter. "I'm not just fighting for pride anymore," he hissed. "I'm fighting with a cause." He raised the orb. The shadows bent, and something old and wrong stirred in the air. Joshua stepped forward, but not with fear, with something colder, final. "Then this is the last time we speak as men," he said, voice echoing across the plaza. Adam cracked his knuckles. "Want me to handle it?" Joshua shook his head. "No," he said. "This time, I do it myself." And across the sky, the Colosseum glowed brighter, waiting, watching. The air cracked, not with sound, but silence. A stillness that didn't belong. And then it began. A ripple at the edge of the plaza. Shadows unfurled from the cracks in the stone, crawling like they had claws. The crowd gasped and stepped back as dark shapes emerged, slow and wrong, like they'd always been there, just waiting to be seen. 3 figures.
No fanfare. No smoke.
Just presence. And dread. Joshua stopped mid-step, eyes scanning the perimeter. Lyrics grinned. "I brought friends," he said. The first to step forward was a woman with flame dancing in her palms. Not wild, not alive. Chained. Fire that hissed like it hated its master. Her hair was scorched at the tips, her robes torn and stitched back with runes that burned. Her eyes were hollow. Ashra, the failed summoner who once tried to call a fire god and got burned from the inside out. Now she didn't command fire. She argued with it, and it listened. She cracked her neck, muttering under her breath. The second was a man cloaked in pitch, no armor, just bandages soaked in ink that stained the cobblestones as he walked. His face was covered. His eyes? Gone. Just inky sockets dripping silence. When his blade was drawn, the air around it blurred, like it was slicing memory itself. They called him Hush. He didn't speak, but he bled ink, and the more he bled, the faster he moved. And the third wasn't even human anymore. He was tall, shirtless, his skin pale like bone-charred ash, hammer slung over his back, its head carved with spirals and faces that screamed without sound. Every tool he touched cursed its wielder. Every weapon he forged turned on its owner. They called him Envil, and he smiled through cracked teeth. The Pale Choir, the Spiral's Dogs. Chapter 198, The Pale Ones. The Pale Choir, the Spiral's Dogs. Adam took one look at them and sighed. Great, he muttered. Was wondering when the freak show would get here. Joshua didn't flinch. His gaze locked with Lyric's, steps still steady. He looked at Adam. Their eyes met. Adam gave him a small nod. Go. Joshua turned without hesitation and continued walking toward Lyric's, the ground under his boots humming with restrained pressure. Alice and Caden stepped back. Adam rolled his shoulders and stepped forward to meet the approaching choir. He clapped once, loud enough to echo through the plaza. All right, he said, smiling like this was just another day. Ladies, gentlemen, whatever the hell you are. Ashra's eyes narrowed. Flames sparked up her arm like they were hungry. Hush tilted his head, dripping ink from his blade. Anvil cracked his neck, knuckles popping like thunder. Adam raised both hands lazily and said, I hate to break it to you, but you're all dead meat. He smirked, that calm grin that only belonged to someone who wasn't bluffing. So, he asked, how do you want to die? Ashra moved first. Fire roared from her palms in spiraling arcs, chains of molten light wrapping toward Adam like snakes. But he didn't move. He just watched as the flames got closer, then snapped his fingers. The fire stopped midair, twitched, then reversed. Ashra's own fire turned on her, like a betrayed pet, and slammed into her chest, throwing her back into a pillar. She screamed, rolling in broken flame. Hush moved next, silent as breath. One moment he was standing, the next right in front of Adam, blade mid-swing. But Adam wasn't there anymore. The rogue blinked, confused, and Adam appeared behind him, hands in his pockets. You're fast, Adam said, voice low. But not fast enough. A pulse rippled from his body. Not visible, felt. The ink around Hush began to boil. He twisted, trying to scream, but no sound came. His blade shattered in his hand. And then, his body hit the ground, motionless, black ink flooding out into the cracks. Envil grunted. He walked forward slowly, hammer dragging behind him, carving grooves into the plaza floor. You broke my friends, he rumbled. Adam cracked his neck.
No.
They were already broken. I just did the cleaning. Envil lifted the hammer. Magic screamed around it. The faces etched into the metal twisted, mouths opening wide.
Adam vaniset.
The hammer swung down, into air. And then, boom! Adam appeared right in front of Anvil, hand glowing with compressed force. He struck the smith in the chest. The hammer fell. So did Envil. A crater formed under him as the stone tiles caved inward, shockwaves rolling outward, sending dust and rubble flying. Silence. Adam dusted off his sleeves. 3. He looked around. Next. There was no next. The crowd, those who hadn't run, stood frozen in awe and fear. The Pale Choir was down. Lyric's grin was gone now. Joshua was standing a few feet away from him, still approaching. Was that the plan? Joshua asked. Throw broken monsters at us to buy yourself time? Lyric snarled. You think you're a king walking back into your throne, but you're just a relic, a shadow. You think this city belongs to you. No, Joshua said. I know it does. Joshua didn't just walk toward Lyrics. He descended. Every step hit the plaza like a quiet drum, echoing through the tense silence left behind by the wreckage of the pale choir. Adam, having finished his part of the show, leaned against a broken pillar and crossed his arms, letting the stage belong to his friend. Lyrics scrambled to his feet. Blood streaked his cheek. His cloak hung off one shoulder, torn and tattered. The spiral-marked orb in his hand flickered weakly, pulsing with erratic energy. But he still stood tall, still full of pride. "This isn't over," he growled. Joshua didn't stop walking. "It is." Lyrics raised the orb, muttering a curse under his breath. Shadows rose from the cobblestones, spiraling up around his arm like serpents. His veins glowed violet. His teeth grit as the artifact fused with his wrist, flesh warping around it. A last resort. "By the spiral's will," he hissed. "I'll tear the light from your name." Joshua halted. For a moment, even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Then, a sharp boom echoed across the plaza. Joshua moved. In one instant, Lyrics stood with his hand raised. In the next, Joshua's foot smashed into his stomach, launching him backwards before he even processed it. He hit the ground, bounced, skidded across the tiles, and crashed into a merchant stand, shattering wood and glass in a storm of sparks. The crowd gasped. Lyrics coughed, blood painting his teeth red. Joshua approached again, calm. "Get up." Lyrics groaned and tried to summon the shadows again. They answered, sluggish and weak. He thrust a hand forward. Spikes of void energy shot from the ground. Joshua weaved through them like they were falling leaves. No wasted movement. No effort. Just grace and dominance. He reappeared beside Lyrics and grabbed his collar. Then slammed him into the ground. Once. Twice. The third time. Cracks split the plaza tiles under them. Dust rose. Lyrics gasped, barely conscious, but still gripping the spiral's corrupted mark on his wrist. "You're nothing," he rasped. "Just a name on an old banner." Joshua yanked him up by the front of his cloak. "Names mean everything," he said, then turned and threw Lyrics through one of the plaza's stone columns. The explosion of debris forced the crowd to shield their eyes. When the dust cleared, Lyrics was embedded in the rubble, bleeding, twitching, trying to breathe. Joshua didn't give him time. He appeared above him midair and stomped down. The earth shook. Lyrics coughed again, tried to swing. Joshua caught his wrist mid-swing and twisted. Snap. Lyrics screamed. "You brought monsters to fight your battles," Joshua said. "You attacked innocent people. You tried to trade a woman like a coin." He slammed his knee into Lyrics's ribs. "You put your pride over your city." Another hit. "You thought the spiral gave you power." He grabbed Lyrics's arm where the mark pulsed. "And all it did was expose how weak you really are." Joshua raised his other hand. A golden symbol ignited over his palm. Pure light. Not magic. Not rage. Just truth. He pressed it to the artifact, and the spiral mark shattered. Lyrics screamed. Not in pain, but in terror. The shadows left him. The curse vanished. He slumped, a broken husk of the spoiled noble he was 5 minutes ago. Joshua leaned in close, voice low. "Crayon Soul deserves better. You're done." Then he turned away. Lyrics didn't move. Couldn't. The silence afterward was suffocating. And then, cheers. From the balconies, the rooftops, the scattered onlookers who'd stayed to witness it all. Joshua didn't raise his hands, didn't bask in it. He simply walked back to Alice, to Caden, to Adam, his people, and together they stepped into the floating arena. The floating chains pulsed in rhythm with every step. The old power had returned. The name the spiral feared. The name the city never forgot. Zariel. And somewhere in the broken dust behind him, Lyrics wept. Chapter 199, Tournament. The spiral screamed. The void trembled. His wail wasn't sound. It was reality tearing at the seams, as if the very concept of frustration had taken shape and decided to implode. The black space twisted in on itself, and the broken stars around him flickered like dying insects, trying to escape the weight of his rage. You dare! His voice echoed through the timeless dark, splitting in layers. One calm, one hysterical, one trembling with fury that bordered on madness. The fabric of the void rippled like disturbed water.
Planes cracked.
Whole memories shattered just by proximity to his voice. I gave you power, he shrieked. I handed you a path. You were nothing, lyrics. Nothing. And now? Broken. Shamed. Beaten into dust in front of a cheering crowd like a cheap storybook villain. 1,000 mirrors shattered in the dark, their shards floating like dust around him. Inside each fragment, a scene, a prophecy, a possible future where lyrics won, where Joshua bled, where Adam knelt. All of them now lies. A distorted scream came from the spiral again. Louder this time, not from a throat, but from everywhere. His thoughts poured like poison across the void. Zariel was supposed to be gone. Another pulse of unstable reality tore out from him, warping space like wax under flame. He was history, a whisper, a relic that belonged to tombs and old fools. And then, and that thing, a sudden silence. Cold, sharp. The spiral's voice dropped to a whisper that cut sharper than screams. That thing,
Adam.
even the darkness around him seemed to hesitate. I don't know what you are, but I see you now. The silence stretched, held, then snapped. A vortex spun into existence. A spiraling gateway of time, memory, and anti-light, forming in front of the spiral like a living eye. In it, Adam's face, calm, smirking, unbothered. The spiral's voice broke again. You don't belong here. You're not part of this design. I didn't draw you. He hurled a wave of raw distortion at the vortex. Space itself bending as the scream followed it, like a god throwing a tantrum that bent galaxies. The vortex cracked, but didn't break. Adam's image blinked out of it with a smirk still resting on his face. Gone. Erased. But not broken. The spiral staggered, chest heaving in a body he didn't need. He tore a memory from the void, a crystallized image of lyrics kneeling in defeat, and crushed it in his hand. Black ichor poured from the fragments, dripping into the nothing below. Do you understand what you've done? He snarled to no one, or perhaps to everyone. This city was the key. This tournament, the first chord in a new song. The pitch was perfect. The choir assembled. And now, he spat the next words like venom. They ruined it. Him. Zariel. That cursed light. And then quieter. And that other thing. That outsider. He began to pace. The void followed. I saw everything. I predicted wars. I bent futures. I whispered truths into broken minds and guided chaos into form. He stopped. But him? That one. A long pause. He wasn't supposed to exist. The spiral turned toward the remnants of a broken timeline. One he'd started sculpting years ago. It had cracks now. Flaws. Pieces erasing themselves before they were ever lived. The pale choir failed. My mark shattered. Lyrics is finished. He stood still in the center of it all, trembling with fury too large for any one realm to carry. But this isn't over. He clenched invisible fists. I won't be forgotten. I won't be denied. The void pulsed again, a slow heartbeat of wrath. I'll twist the next piece deeper, make it smarter, unseen, unheard. I'll dig under the surface of their world until their own people break them from the inside. He tilted his head, as if listening to something that no one else could hear. Yes, a different hand, a quieter touch. No more puppets. No more brats chasing validation. The spiral laughed now, cold and thin. Let the world see Zariel walk again. Let them cheer. Let them pretend their king is back. He extended a hand, and another mirror rose. This one didn't show the past or the present. It showed a ruined Colosseum, a broken sky, Alice weeping, Joshua on his knees, Caden shouting into smoke.
Adam nohere.
And standing in the center, cloaked in shadows, was a figure even the spiral hadn't named yet. Let them cheer, the spiral whispered, leaning in, breath like a storm sliding under skin. Because when they fall, he closed the mirror with a snap of his fingers. It'll be louder than anything I've written before. And the spiral laughed again, and again, and again, until even the void itself wanted to run.
Crayon Sol.
The Zenith Arena hovered like a throne above the middle district of Crayon Sol, chains of crystal and light anchoring it to the sky. The energy of the crowd inside roared like thunder wrapped in song. Every seat was full. The balconies overflowed. Representatives of every major house, guild, faction, and species lined the upper terraces in ornate robes and enchanted armor. In the center, under a dome of translucent magic, the combatants waited. But everything stopped when the main gates of the arena opened, and he walked in. Joshua, or rather, Zariel. He didn't wear the golden armor from the stories. No wings of fire or blade of prophecy. Just dark robes, a scarlet-lined coat brushing his heels, and the weight of presence so heavy it bent the light around him. Behind him, Alice, radiant and silent, Caden, serious and alert, and Adam, relaxed, arms folded, walking like the world itself owed him nothing. The crowd murmured, then hushed, then fell into silence as Joshua reached the arena floor. Vale stood near the center, dressed in ceremonial robes for once, holding a staff of officiation. He didn't speak. Didn't need to. He stepped aside. Joshua turned slowly, taking in the entire Colosseum, from the lowest seats to the glowing towers at the top. He saw them all. The nobles, the generals, the spies pretending not to be spies. He saw Duke Gorham, jaw tight with recognition. Lady Vereen, unreadable behind her silver mask. He took one step forward. The ground echoed. And then his voice, calm, unshaken, but somehow louder than the storm. To those of you who remember the old name, I greet you as Zariel. A collective gasp rippled across the seats. 1,000 murmurs, heads turning, lips mouthing the word like a forgotten prayer. He kept going. To those of you who only know the chaos that replaced me, I welcome you as Joshua, the one who returns, not to reclaim what was lost, but to purge what should never have been. Gasps again. Cries. A few voices calling his name. Crayon Sol has rotted, he continued. Not from war, but from comfort. From shadows wearing titles. From smiles lined with poison. He turned slowly, letting his voice carry. This city was once sacred, balanced, a crown of realms. It will be that again. The spiral, and every curse it whispered into our streets, will be erased. Every monster it molded, purged. He raised his hand. The age of fear ends here. Cheers began, small at first, then louder, louder, until it was an uproar. Joshua dropped his hand and stepped back. Adam moved forward. The crowd quieted again. They didn't know him, not yet, but they would. He raised a hand, voice casual, but carried by some unseen force. Name's Adam, he said. No long history.
No banners.
I'm not from your tales. I'm not a king. He looked around. But I have people. And if you come for them, he pointed up at the nobles. If you harm them, curse them, lie to them, or even look at them wrong, the arena trembled. You don't face politics. You don't face tribunals. You face me. And I don't do second chances. A stillness settled over the arena. The kind that didn't come from awe, but fear. Duke Gorham stood, red-faced. Is that a threat, outsider? Adam met his gaze. No, he said. That was a promise. Lady Vereen said nothing, but her hand moved to her side, activating a silent rune that whispered her thoughts to her agents. Investigate immediately.
Joshua s'était peu de décide Adam.
And together, they looked up at the highest seat, where the celestial king himself had just risen, expression unreadable. Joshua raised his chin. You brought us together for spectacle, for a tournament, for show. But we're not here to dance. We're here to rebuild. The crowd stood. Not all, but many. And the air turned electric. The spiral, wherever it watched from, heard it all. And the war had begun. A few minutes later, Trumpets made of wind echoed from the towers. A floating steward, veiled in gold chains and wrapped in translucent silks, descended from the air. "Honored champions," the steward announced, voice carried through amplification glyphs across the arena. "The Celestial King welcomes you. Today you stand before the eyes of the Origin Realm. Let your strength be judged not by brute force, but by the harmony of power, purpose, and will." The crowd erupted in cheers. Lady Vereen sat in her skybox, flanked by spell guards, her expression unreadable as she observed Zariel, Joshua. Her fingers twitched with restrained curiosity. Duke Gorham growled under his breath, arms folded across his broad chest. He eyed Adam like one might stare at a storm without understanding it. Below, the matchups began appearing in glowing script across the air. The first was ceremonial. A warrior from the Dwerin mountain clans versus a winged dulcivant from the avian highflocks.
Steel met feathers. Roars met silence.
It was a show of speed, precision, and raw magic. But it wasn't until Caden's name appeared next that the audience leaned forward. Caden Dark versus Champion Rel of the Iron Guild. Caden blinked. "Already?" Joshua smirked. "Good. Stretch your legs." Chapter 200. The name Dark. Caden stood at the edge of the arena floor, the distant cheers already beginning to fade beneath the pressure of what was coming. His name hovered in golden script above the crystalline dome for all to see, floating alongside the name of his opponent. Champion Rel of the Iron Guild. The Iron Guild, a clan of metal-blooded warriors from the inner forges of Elthros. Rel wasn't just their champion. He was their pride. A walking mountain of armor and enchantment, muscle forged by war, blade kissed by runesmiths. Caden had seen him once in a memory. He looked back. Alice gave him a reassuring nod. Joshua offered a small smile, calm as ever. But it was Adam who stepped forward. "Caden," he called. Caden turned. "Yeah." Adam walked toward him, slowly, deliberate. There was no grand speech, no fatherly pat on the shoulder. He simply reached out and tapped his son on the forehead. A spark of light burst from the point of contact, barely visible to most, but the arena shivered. The floating chains creaked. Caden felt it instantly. Something uncoiled inside him. Not fire, not mana, something older, deeper, like the breath before the first word of the universe. His veins pulsed. His skin hummed, his heartbeat changed rhythm. Slower, stronger, clearer. He stumbled slightly, catching himself. Adam leaned in. "Just 1%. That's all you get." Caden blinked. "Wait, what?"
Adam similet faintly.
"Go. Show them who a Dark is." A few people near the edge of the arena raised their brows. "Dark?" one whispered. "What's that, a clan?" "Never heard of it," another muttered. "Sounds made up." But Joshua, still watching, tilted his head slightly. His smirk grew a fraction wider. Vale raised one brow and muttered under his breath. "Oh, they're not ready." The steward called out, "Caden Dark, Champion Rel. Step forth." Caden walked into the center. So did Rel. The crowd quieted again. Rel towered over Caden, metal armor gleaming with heat runes, a two-handed war blade slung over his shoulder. His skin shimmered with a metallic tint, like someone dipped a god in molten steel. He looked Caden up and down. "You look soft," Rel grunted. Caden rolled his neck. "And you look overcooked." A murmur of laughter rippled from one side of the stands. Rel snorted. "Try not to die too quickly, boy." The steward raised her hand. "Begin." Rel moved like an avalanche. Fast, brutal, direct. His blade swung downward with a scream of metal, aiming to split Caden from shoulder to spine. But Caden didn't dodge. He stepped into the swing. Rel blinked, too late. Caden twisted, grabbed the flat of the descending blade with one hand, and redirected it with a flick of his wrist. The massive sword slammed into the stone beside him, cracking the floor. Caden lifted his other hand, palm open, and struck. Just once. An open palm hit to the chest. It sounded like thunder. Rel staggered back, coughing, the breath knocked out of him. His armor steamed. The audience gasped. "What was that?" someone muttered. "He didn't even use magic." Rel roared and charged again, this time with spells lacing his blade. Explosive enchantments, flame trails, kinetic bursts. Caden moved through it, like wind through fire. His movements weren't flashy. They were efficient, clean. One step here, a slip there, a turn, a pivot, a breath. His strikes were few, but they landed like punctuation marks in a sentence written in steel. He ducked a cleave, slid under Rel's guard, and kicked him in the back of the knee. As Rel stumbled, Caden launched upward, elbow crashing into the back of the champion's neck. Rel hit the floor, hard. Caden landed beside him, calm, untouched. Rel growled, pushing himself up. Caden looked down. "You want to forfeit?" Rel answered by swinging again. Caden caught the blade with 2 fingers. The audience gasped. Caden looked at the blade, then at Rel. Then he let go, and in a blur he was behind Rel. Rel turned and Caden struck. This time a full-body blow to the chest.
No magic.
Just raw celestial muscle. Rel flew across the arena, into the wall. The entire Colosseum shook. The golden dome flickered for a second. Rel didn't get up. Silence. The steward hovered forward, eyes wide. See, champion Rel is unable to continue. Victory goes to Caden Dark.
No chairs.
Not yet. Everyone was still watching Caden, who stood in the center of the ring, chest rising slowly, his eyes calm, controlled, but different now. Something deeper behind them. Joshua nodded once. "That's our boy." Alice smiled softly, a hand over her heart. Adam just folded his arms and smirked. 1%. The Zenith Arena buzzed with a new kind of energy. The name Caden Dark echoed in the air like a spell no one had heard before but would never forget again. Whispers spread through the crowd. "Did you see how fast he moved? What kind of magic was that?" It felt ancient. "Dark. I don't know that house. Do you?"
No.
"But I think we will." Up in the noble boxes, Lady Vereen leaned forward, her silver mask gleaming under the arena lights. Her spell guard stood behind her, silent and still, but she could feel the tension in the air. The boy moved like a predator trained from birth. Duke Gorham didn't hide his scowl. He grunted, his heavy rings clinking against the rail as he clenched his fist. "Dark, huh? Never heard of it. But that kind of power? That's not from the lower districts." "He moves like a godspawn," said one of the Iron Guild emissaries nearby. "But the records show no celestial bloodline." "Then the records are wrong." Down below, Caden walked back toward the waiting circle, his steps calm, but every motion still crackling with the aftershock of the power he'd just unleashed. His opponent, Champion Rel, was still being carried off the field by medics, unconscious but alive.
Joshua met Caden halfway.
He didn't speak, he just gave the boy a look.
Bride.
But laced with caution. Caden nodded, held back, like you said. Joshua smirked. "You did good." From the corner of the field, Adam watched it all, arms folded, gaze cool. He felt the stirrings in the air. Whispers, spells being tuned, people scribbling sigils to investigate. The name Dark would not stay in mystery for long. And that was fine. Let them dig. Let them find nothing. The truth wasn't in the books. It was in the blood. The tournament continued. Caden's second match came 2 hours later. A dual-wielding elf from the Crimson Veil sect, a notorious duelist with perfect record, said to be so fast he could cut lightning in half. It ended in 31 seconds. Caden didn't even summon a weapon. He moved through the elf's range like a ghost, tapped a sigil across the elf's ribs with his fingers, and whispered something only the elf could hear. The moment the countdown ended, the elf fell to one knee and forfeited. No one understood why. Only that fear was real in his eyes. By the third match, there were no more whispers. Only silence. Even the Celestial King leaned forward now, his golden crown dimmed slightly by the sheer tension. Lady Vereen spoke to her advisor in a whisper of light magic. Begin a trace. Cross-reference the name Dark against the inter-realm registrars. Scan all sealed archives. Understood, my lady. Duke Gorham cracked his knuckles. If he's not from here, we need to know where he's from. Power like that doesn't come cheap. In the arena tunnels, Caden leaned against a stone wall, breath even, aura quiet. Alice approached, holding a drink and a small towel. You're not even sweating. Caden took the drink, smiled faintly. A little. She looked at him carefully. They're all watching now. The nobles, the guilds, the spiral. Caden's jaw clenched at that last name. Alice lowered her voice. They're going to come for you. Caden glanced toward the bright light spilling from the arena gates. He could hear the crowd still buzzing from his last fight. Let them. Then he looked at her softer. As long as they don't come for you, I'll be fine. Alice blinked, then smiled. You're definitely his son. Up above, Joshua and Adam watched in silence. They won't let this slide, Joshua said. They're already trying to trace him. Adam didn't blink. Let them try. You sure unlocking 1% was enough?
Adam Simirket.
For now. Let them get curious. Let them start trembling. Joshua nodded. He made his mark. Adam turned toward the horizon. Now it's time to protect it. And somewhere far beyond Crayon Soul, in a place where mirrors wept and time whispered in circles, the spiral watched the arena flicker in his broken reflections, and began writing again. But this time not in ink, in blood. The war for Caden Dark had officially begun.